Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 477. Disc golf guy, alongside Johnny V. Another night.
Another Tuesday night, 477 later. Just 477 nights ago, Terry. Or 477 Tuesday nights ago.
Yeah, give or take. We had a few extras during some of our big events, and then also we missed a week or two in there. So it's been a long time coming. November. We're going to be just shy. Come next episode or two, we're going to be just shy of that 9-year mark.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're all doing here, but
it's
been a long ride, and we're here. So again, 477 tonight. We've got some updates. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty with the guys over at UDisc. They've got some new enhancements that released just about a week ago or so, and everybody's been kind of curious as to how it works, what's going on, what does this really mean, how does this impact you, and why you need to buy a pro membership. All of those types of things are in the works, and I don't think we're going to even stall or hang this out any longer. We've got Matt and Doeke who are joining us from UDisc. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, doing good.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, always. We get UDisc on about every, I'd say, 100 episodes because they usually, and normally for a long time, no offense, Doeke, but it was always Matt and Josh. And we've dumped Josh.
Did you guys kill him off?
He just, put him in the basement and let him just code. That's where he's happiest.
Nope. Yeah, Josh is still here. Don't worry. He's doing just fine.
Sure he
Yeah,
is.
sure. As they
Just
slide
don't
some
check
bread
the
underneath a door and they keep coding. Well, welcome in, guys. As we said, you guys have been along for all of the crazy excitement that's been the Pro Tour, and then some, of course. But in 2016, as if I need to explain this to any of our viewers, but in 2016, when we saw the Pro Tour take off, a few of the most crucial components to the Pro Tour for Steve Dodge and his original vision was that every event would have live disc golf broadcasting, which at the time was pretty much us at SmashBoxx, and that it would also have live scoring and enhanced statistics and other trackable things that you guys have started with and then blossomed into a million additional capabilities. But it's been quite a journey. So before we get into some of the new stuff, Matt, maybe you're better with this, but did you ever think we'd all be where we are today, now, here? Can you reflect for just a minute?
It's hard to reflect. I mean, it's been a whirlwind and a long path to get here, but it's definitely been cool to watch the sport grow. So much has changed since 2016. I know you guys know that just about as well as anybody, but just the landscape of the pro scene and recreational disc golf has just continued to grow so fast. And we feel very lucky to be in the position that we're in, but we're also just thankful to be able to work in, a field that is something we're all very passionate about. So I know you guys feel the same way. It's been cool to be, friends with you guys for a long time too. I know I don't know how long ago we first met, but it was probably 2016 or 2015 or something like that. So coming up on 10 years here, which crazy amount of time. I think we just finished our 8th season with UDisc Live and the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So it's been quite a lot of tournaments. We had 66 tournaments, I think, this year overall, DGPT plus others, and very, very long year. I think the first year we did 5 for the DGPT, and now, this year 66. We had many weekends with 3 or 4 at the same time, which is something that would have not been anywhere close to possible 8 years ago. So it's definitely, it's hard to reflect on, but it's been a lot, and it's very exciting, and we're just very lucky and happy to be where we are.
So UDisc has been around for 8, 9, 10 years now. How long has Doeke been with UDisc? Duke's the lead data scientist, if I'm correct.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
fancy.
data scientist. I'm one of 2 data scientists at UDisc. I've been around for coming up on 3 years here. I think I started as sort of a freelance basis pretty close to 3 years ago. And then a few months later, I joined full time.
So what does the lead data scientist do? And is that something you went to school for? Is this something you came out of college and you're like, all right, I'm a data analyst, and
Yeah.
where am I going to work? I love disc golf, and UDisc is like, hello, like how
In
exactly
a way,
did
it's not too far off from the truth. Yeah, data scientist is a very very broad term. My educational background is in math. I have a PhD in mathematics, so numerical literacy is kind of top of mind to me. But also had a huge hobby in disc golf and happened to be finishing my program. Um, right during the COVID boom and saw an ad for UDisc wanting to hire for various roles, and I applied, and the rest is history. So that's how I got my start.
So let's just.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say. Well, go ahead and finish whatever as you got your start. The quick follow up to that would be: are you doing exactly as the job description maybe laid out? How is that transitioned, if at all?
Yeah. I mean, as a small team, everybody on the team really wears many hats, and you need to be able to pivot and solve problems. So, day to day, I would consider myself and everybody on the team. This goes for everybody as problem solvers. My particular role is problems around data. Other people may, focus more on problems around solving customer problems, problems around building the actual app around software. But everybody's a problem solver, and my corner is around data. So whether that's getting insights from data, building products around data, understanding statistics as it relates to the business, or as it relates to the pro scene, or as it relates to the everyday casual player, just anything around data.
what do you live in? Like, I have a feeling Matt, like, he does coding and a lot of other business side of the stuff. But so I have a feeling like Matt's looking at some code editor like VS Code or something along those lines. Like, what programs do you live in? And maybe our viewers have no interest in this, but I do. Like, are you an Excel guy? Is this like Google Sheets? Or do you have?
Yeah,
like
we're also mostly coders. The language of choice for a lot of data scientists, and I'm going to start a war by saying that I like Python rather than R.
Team Python.
Yep. So my language of choice is Python. That's what we mostly use for our data products. But yeah, living in a code editor for the most part. Here and there will be a spreadsheet or something else, but mostly the way that I interact with the data is code.
So I want to take a quick step back, because you said such a great phrase when you say problem solving. And for those who might be new, and because it's been a little while, Matt, explain to the world how UDisc even just originally came about, and the problem that you guys were looking to solve, and why UDisc even formed.
Sure. I'm sure plenty of people have heard it before, but UDisc kind of came about from a personal need to have an easier way to find courses nearby on a mobile device in particular. So, there are some websites and other tools out there, but the exact origin story is I went to play Bryant Lake Park for the first time, which is a fairly well-known course in the Minneapolis area, and showed up and it was closed. There were cops like turning people away because it was closed for the season. And my friends had driven quite a ways to get there. And so we were like, this stinks. Like, how do we find somewhere else to play? We don't know this part of town. And, eventually some, very kludgy internet searches on our phones, we were able to find somewhere to play. But I was like, this should be way easier. You need to use the GPS on your phone and just hit a button and be like, show me all the courses. So that's kind of, what first started it. So UDisc was purely just a course finder in its first inception. It was Android only. It was only Minnesota courses, and then it expanded from there. And the scorecard came about, and more and more features kept being added, and then UDisc Live came to be a thing. And then we just kept building from there. And a few years later, we were able to grow our team to be more than just me and Josh. Now there's 22 of us full time at UDisc, which is crazy to think about. And we had 4 interns last summer that were full time. So we were pushing 30 for a little while last summer, which is just insane to think about. Such a humble beginning, going to that many people working full time in disc golf.
It is, and just for comparison's sake, when for instance Johnny and I, originally got into the PDGA in the mid to late '90s, like there were two, maybe three people at most, or one and a half, maybe even technically, that were employed by the PDGA. I mean, you had. Guru, and then you had his wife, Lori, and I think they technically were like 1.5 employees is how it was determined, and then a number of consultants, and that was it. You'd go to a place like Innova East, and there was probably only 20-ish or 30-ish employees at all of Innova East at that time, and your smaller places like Gateway were literally just one person still, or two people, and DGA just a handful of people. So the fact that here we are is my point, that you guys are sitting at 22 full-time employees, someone like the Pro Tour sitting at 60-ish employees. It's absolutely incredible. And I know we're not quite to the new stuff, but when you look at the usage for you guys, roughly where's that dividing line of course use versus or course scorecard finding use, and course use and scorecard, as opposed to the watching live golf? Like, is there a rough estimate on that, how those two break up into what people are using it for?
I don't know the exact number on how many people are following live stuff compared to those two, but I can tell you that finding courses and keeping score is, a multiple more than following live disc golf.
Huh.
Last year we had over 19 million rounds recorded in the app, which is a pretty big number. And this year we're trending higher than that. So, I think that generally finding courses is one of the most popular things people use the app for. Keeping score is another. The thing that we always come back to is that the vast majority of disc golf is played recreationally. And I think that kind of with how much, cachet watching pro disc golf has, and just kind of the notoriety, it sometimes seems pro disc golf is disc golf. And while it is kind of the pinnacle of disc golf, it really represents kind of a small segment of the whole. And one thing that we're really proud of at UDisc is that we've been able to offer products that sort of apply to, the whole breadth of the sport, whether it's the very top end of the pros or the very bottom end of the person playing their first round or trying to find their first course. But in general, it's hard to put a number on it, but it's, 10 or 100 times more people are finding courses and keeping score than following live disc golf.
Yeah, I mean, that's primarily what I use UDisc for, is to find a course. If I go traveling for work and I'm in Florida near the Orlando area, the first thing I do, if I have a spare night, it's like, all right, where's the nearest course? Click, and it'll show me the nearest.
Yeah, but you're
course.
using UDisc every day. There's a Pro Tour event too. You're not a good example necessarily.
Well, when it comes to the app I'm using, that's how I'm using it. But I mean, the UDisc tools that the Pro Tour uses are not customer facing at all. I mean, that's all back end stuff for graphics and things like that. So it's a little bit different.
But you're still logged into UDisc Live every day. Every day there's a live event going on. You're using UDisc Live.
I'm using UDisc Live,
even if you're not working
but not
the
on
event.
my app. I usually bring it up on the.
Anyway, so lots of people are using it. Clearly, what is it like? Because I know even on our board tonight, we'll get a number of them. What is it like to see or read or accept and digest user suggestions? What is that process like today, even compared to last time we talked to you about it? What needs to happen? How does that go about?
I'd say that it's changed a lot over the years. I mean, back in the day when it was just me and Josh and we were it, most of the stuff that we built was, things that we wanted personally or things that we heard, we wanted and other people were saying it too. And we're like, okay, cool. That makes sense. Let's do it. There's somebody asking for it. These days we take a much more analytical approach to those types of things and try to look at which parts of our apps or websites people are spending time in, what makes sense to make better. Is there a good case for improving something? Or the hardest thing we're always trying to do is where's our time best spent? And these days, when we get user feedback, we actually are tracking that, in a system, and we have a way to say like, oh, look, this is the most requested thing. And we also put out surveys, which has been very helpful for us to figure out where to focus our efforts. And I don't know if you want me to segue into the topic at hand, but round ratings were something that have been the most highly requested, or among the most highly requested things to add to the app for 10 years, probably 8 or 10 years. It's been something that people have been asking us for.
So with regards to round ratings, naturally, I feel like if you've gotten it as far as using UDisc and playing around at all, ratings, if you've discovered what they are, or even think about rating, it's because you're comparing them to the PDGA. I would think it'd be weird to just show up and be like, hey, I shot a 12 under. Somebody tell me what a rating is and what that rated should be. Like, unless you're somehow making it relative to the PDGA's rating system. So assuming that's the case, why or why not would you borrow, use, collaborate, whatever, with the PDGA rating, and then how did you guys arrive at your own?
Yeah,
great question.
Great questions for sure. Stepping back for a second, before PDGA ratings even existed, people were probably asking similar questions that we're asking, and maybe they aren't framing them in terms of a rating, but they're asking, I played course A and I shot 3 under. I played course B and I shot 7 under. Which round was better? Maybe course B is a little bit easier and I shot better, but was that really enough to make up the difference? And that's really where the concept of a rating starts, whether it's a PDGA rating or a UDisc round rating. So it's kind of a natural thing to grasp for. How good is my round when I compare it to other rounds that I've played on other courses, or maybe my friends' rounds that they have played on other courses? How can I compare these things? How can I track my progress over time in another way other than just looking at my score to par when I'm playing lots of different courses and different styles? It's just another way to track improvement. So that's really where the idea came from.
So let's start with the basics. Like, how does it differ from the PDGA's ratings, or anyone else that has a rating system? Anyone else that has either a scorecard or has any other way of keeping track of things, how does it differ from the others? And why is yours better?
I think the main difference between the UDisc round rating system and the PDGA rating system is that the PDGA rating system is, as you guys know, is really more of a competition-based metric. You're measuring your performance against how other rated players have performed in the same day on the same course. The UDisc round rating system is more of a performance-based metric in the sense that we're just measuring your score versus the course, and we can kind of treat the course as a constant, mostly a constant over time. It's you versus the course. PDGA system is more you versus the other players. That's what I mean when I say like a competition-based metric.
So was there a conscious reason to not at least kind of mirror the PDGA ratings? I mean, when you're
in terms of a scale,
when you're inside the sport, obviously you kind of know a 1050 great player, 850, MA3 or whatever that might be, and then there's a scale in between there. Was there any talk about kind of maybe doing something similar? Because right now, my understanding is the ratings, the UDisc ratings, go from, I'm going to guess 0 up to, it's over 300. We know that. I don't know if I've seen a top level that was actually ever announced. I know I've seen a couple people post above 300, and I don't know if you can get to 400 or not, but like, what was the thought process behind your rating versus maybe giving people kind of what, like, oh yeah, this is a 200 is just like 1,000 rated or something?
Yeah, great question. So it was considered. We considered, various scales to put the system on. Ultimately, the decision came down to, for one thing, there are far more people who are unfamiliar with the PDGA round rating system than who are familiar, as we sort of discussed already, the casual recreational scene is orders of magnitude larger than the competitive scene. So we really wanted to cater to to that segment, have a way for those people to track their rounds, even if they aren't participating in tournaments as much or at all. And they're two very different systems. The UDisc round rating system is very different from the PDGA round rating system. They are measuring two, related but very different things. So trying to map to the PDGA scale, we thought would mostly just cause more confusion. It would definitely not be a perfect map. We have, in the various feedback we've gotten so far, we've seen lots of people try to come up with a map, and there are various formulas floating around. Those have been fun to look at. And of course, they're going to be correlated, but there's not going to be a perfect map. So we wanted to choose a scale that was, very different, that would be hard to confuse for the 1000 based scale.
And my understanding, the way the PDGA scale works, a stroke is a stroke no matter where it is. If you take an extra stroke on hole 2 versus an extra stroke on hole 8, the PDGA doesn't care because they're looking at the total number of strokes at the end. That's not the way your guys' is set up. It's it
is set up that way. So if you score the same total score on the same layout, you will get the same rating. Say you and a buddy go play the same layout, and you get birdies on different holes and bogeys on other holes, but you both end up with a 56.
Okay.
That round will be rated the same no matter what.
I wasn't sure if there was some sort of difference based on the whole,
right,
how it rates an individual, but okay.
Yeah, we can get in. So there's some interesting hole based stuff that we can get into a bit later. But one interesting difference between our system and the PDGA system is, as far as I know, the PDGA system does have a constant number of points per stroke, no matter where you are on the scale. So if you go from 7 under to 8 under, that's worth a fixed number of points. If you go from 11 over to 10 over, that one stroke is worth the same number of points. Our system is set up a little bit differently to recognize that eking out that one extra stroke when you're already 7 under par is, a more monumental effort than, saving an extra stroke when you're 10 over par going to 9 over par. So it's not a constant points per stroke curve. You get more points if you're already at the high end of the curve, and you eke out that extra birdie. We made this decision. This is one of the things I'm most proud of about the system, actually, is we made this decision in a very kind of data-driven way, where we looked at players who tended to be, have a raw score in a certain range, tended to be like 5 under par at the typical course versus players who tended to be 5 over par at the typical course. And we looked at how much their scores varied. As you can maybe guess, players who are higher skilled and shoot lower scores also tend to do that more consistently. And players who are shooting higher scores tend to vary their score by a lot more. So somebody might shoot between 5 and 15 over par, a 10-stroke range, whereas a highly skilled and consistent player might shoot only, between 4 and 6 under par. They're very consistent on a given course. And so the round rating scale equalizes that variance. Even though the higher skilled, more consistent player is shooting raw strokes in a smaller interval, their rating interval will be roughly the same as a person who is shooting above par. It may vary by, say, I'm not sure exactly what would be reasonable, but something like 30 or 40 points, no matter where you are on the scale.
And your user in UDisc, when you become a UDisc Pro member, now this is a Pro member benefit, correct?
Yes.
All right. Yep. So this is, if you want to get that, you make sure you sign up for the UDisc Pro, people. As a user, do I get an overall rating, where you combine all of my rounds, or is it individual rounds? And then what are you rating at?
Great questions. Yeah.
The answer is not yet. Yeah, I think that an overall rating is something that we're certainly looking at, and people have been asking us about. We definitely want to give the system a little bit of time be out in the world before we start doing something like that. But it's certainly something that I think is very likely to happen. What am I rated? So with maybe the 20 or 30 rounds I've been able to play with the new system, I think I typically end up in like the 220 range when I'm playing average. I've had my best is like 240 so far. So,
and to follow that up, do you guys before we move on to the second part of that, when you're looking at a rating and then possibly having it attached and with you, do you guys see a time frame where they fall off similar, or weighting anything more heavily because it's more recent? I think of some of the ways that the PDGA currently operates with, kind of this 12-month rotating scale and then kind of double weighting, I don't know what your last 25% or whatever it is. Do you guys, have you seen pros and cons to any of those other philosophies as you may roll them out?
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of discussion to be had about the exact parameters and how many rounds to drop and the time period to roll things up from. But some of the factors that we'll be weighing here is, if our system doesn't account for weather, for example, or doesn't make any adjustments for inclement weather. So if we roll this up to an eventual player rating, we'll for sure be dropping some rounds because we want to kind of measure players at their best. But we also want to give an accurate snapshot of what a player's potential is going to be. So these are all discussions to be had and to look at the data and kind of explore how this would behave. But all things that we'll be considering.
Yeah, because I imagine that you're already fielding questions and requests and things, because if Matt and I go out to a course and I know that Matt's like, I usually shoot about 220 here, and I look at it and I go, oh, I usually shoot about a 195 here, someone's going to want to say, do I get like 20 points? Do I get 2 strokes on you to make things more fair? I'm assuming all that stuff is being talked about behind the scenes. And I guess that's one of the nice things now is we can kind of, if you look at an average for a particular course or just in general, maybe this is a little bit better of a handicap system because it is more universal than the PDGA. Because in general for PDGA, we've always just kind of considered, depending on the course SSA, about a stroke every between 7 to 10 points is always what you and I always kind of figured based on our ratings, but that would be different with you guys now.
Yeah, great question. So you bring up a great point about the comparison to like a golf handicapping system, which kind of tries to solve 2 problems with the same tool. And the 2 problems they're trying to solve is get everyone on an equal playing field. So tell people how many strokes to spot each other in a competition, as well as just have a number to compare their scores and their overall progress by. We've kind of tried to decouple those 2 problems, and round ratings we see as the solution to the latter problem, a way to track your progress even across different courses throughout time, different courses, different layouts, all of those things. The interesting thing is that the system behind round ratings, we think can also be used to solve the first problem, in that, it can be used to tell 2 people who go out to play a round, one's more skilled than the other, how many strokes should that person spot each other, or even in a larger competition. What should we set everybody's starting score so that they all have an equal probability of winning? We don't think that it would be using the numerical round ratings that we have right now, but the math and the models behind the system can be used to solve those problems as well.
Future stuff.
Yeah, and just to I guess oversimplify it, if Johnny and I went out and played at a course and there were long and short tees, it's 100% conceivable, right, that if I played the long tees and shot a 5 under, and Johnny played the short tees and shot a 10 under, we'll just make up some numbers, we could essentially both walk away with a similar, if not maybe even exactly the same rating for instance, depending on how the course lays out, right? So how much do all of the additional tees and pins and and the endless possibilities, how much does that F with this entire system? Knowing that him and I played a course here in Milwaukee the other day, there's now 27 holes. We'll just say there's 18. The original 18 holes. 13 of them have long pads. The other 5 don't. And then there's anywhere from 1 to 6 different pins that could be used on any given day. There's, this infinite number of configurations. How in the world? I mean, we're still doing some like rough guessing at a certain point, aren't you guys?
Well, I'd be happy to answer that one. And I'm sure Doeke can add more. But as many of you may know, a few years ago, we released something called Smart Layouts, which was the purpose of that was specifically to solve this problem, which is making sure that we are accurately recording which tee to target combination you're playing on each hole. If you've heard of the concept of being a course ambassador, those are people that sign up to sort of be the steward of a certain course in the course directory. And what they're able to do is go into some of our internal, we call it Map Manager. So it's a tool that allows you to actually mark where every tee and every target is on the course, and then build a layout from all that information. And so at this point, over 90% of the 1,000 most played courses in the world have smart layouts. And about 85% of the top 2,000 most played courses in the world have smart layouts, which is to say that, we can, with reasonable confidence, know that people are, playing the right tee to target combination on most of these courses. It does require, the ambassadors to keep things up to date, which generally is good. But one thing that, while I have a platform to say it, like if you're ever playing a course and you see that the map in UDisc, it doesn't reflect which pin is actually installed at the moment, tap the button on the top right of the scorecard. It's a little orange basket with a circle around it, and you can change the target that you're playing to in your scorecard. So that's something that becomes a little bit more important now with ratings, to make sure that you're going to get an accurate rating. So just be aware of that. If you're ever playing and the map doesn't look right, you can fix it on the spot. And if you live near a course that doesn't have smart, please consider applying to be an ambassador. It should only take you 30 minutes or so the first time to get everything set up. And then anytime pins change, it's just a couple taps on your phone to say like, oh no, hole 1's in the B position, hole 2's in the C position. You can just very easily do it. But to get back to your original question, how much does it F with the system? I think that it kind of is the fundamental component of the whole system, is just making sure we know which tees and targets people are actually playing. And this is sort of a unique problem to disc golf. For anybody who's played traditional golf, you're not doing stuff like that. Like you walk up and you play the gold tee to whatever pin is installed. They don't have multiple pins. They might move the cup, a few feet each day to keep the grass from getting worn or something like that. But disc golf kind of has this unique problem where a course could have, literally millions of permutations that could be played on any given day. And even worse when the course has like 3 baskets installed on every hole, like always. But that's what smart layouts are for, is to solve that problem, and also giving people that are keeping score the ability to update that on the fly as they're playing. And then Doeke, feel free to add more to that.
Yeah. No, that's all exactly right. Yeah, I was just going to mention the technical challenge and the inevitable solution that a system like this must be based on holes. It can't be based purely on a course or on a small number of layouts on a course, just because of the sheer number of possibilities. So, a little technical note is that's kind of behind the scenes how the system is working. It's a hole-based model that is rolled up to the layout level every time you play around.
So I guess along those lines, and I think about existing layouts and the, like you said, the infinite, possibilities. Let's just say a brand new course goes in down the road from me. I'm the first to ever log it and play it on UDisc. How long does it take for UDisc to learn things to then make it accurate? Obviously, the more people that play, it's always going to probably be improving. But are you helping set a course standard of a sort when you're one of the early players? How does that work?
Yeah, so the data is updated constantly. Every round that you play is sort of a drop, is sort of a grain of sand in the overall picture of a course. But every round you play is contributing to the overall difficulty, so to speak, of a course. We have some internal rules of thumb about how many plays and how many different players are required before we are confident enough to assign ratings to certain layouts, to brand new layouts, say. So we're not going to show a rating for the very first player who ever plays the course. We can calculate a guess still based on the whole distances, but it's really just an unconfident guess until we have a certain amount of data that's going into the model.
Yeah, so, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm out there, I play the course first. It's an 18-hole course. I shoot 9 under. Clearly, I'm like, I wonder what that's rated. But if I'm literally the first person logging that into UDisc, it may not show it until 25 or 100 rounds have showed up, and then that's when we'll see some form of a rating get assigned. Is that a fair estimation?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just one minor clarification. If that exact situation happened, a rating wouldn't show up on that old scorecard that you created, but it would show up the next time you played there.
Okay.
We're not going to retroactively add a rating for a round that happened before we were confident.
No, then what you do is you just go and re-enter that thing, the exact same thing you did after you get that, and delete the old one.
Oh, so smart, Johnny.
And so you can get
the
rating.
tricks that people have figured out. Yes.
Yeah. Some people have figured out the trick. Yeah. If you go edit an old scorecard, it may show a rating.
Oh. How do you? I mean, we saw it. I think I've seen comments on maybe it was Reddit or whatever, but like cheaters, obviously. I played with Terry this weekend. He somehow scored a 1 on every hole. I don't know how he did it, but how do you deal with something like that for accuracy? Because we've seen the leaderboards, and it's really hard to judge. And maybe this is something that can help with the leaderboards. When some guy puts in he shot an 18, like we all know he didn't ace every hole. How do you guys deal with that? Do you take out the highs and the lows? Is it some sort of? I mean, you're the data scientist. I'm going to just make an ass of myself if I continue.
Yeah, don't even guess any other phrases. Throw out regression model. I think that's a word.
Median mode.
Yeah, regression.
Standard deviation.
There you go.
Great word association.
Yeah, nice. I know all the lingo.
Yeah, no, great questions. A couple points. For one thing, if you see some clearly bogus scores on the leaderboards, we do make efforts to make leaderboards accurate and reflect the nature of things. So if you see some bogus scores, do feel free to reach out, and we want to be removing those if they're clearly fakes. Other points are that the scores that you do see on the leaderboard are a tiny fraction of all of the scores on a typical course and just globally in general. So all of those fake scores are featured prominently in certain situations, but make up a tiny amount of the data. We also have various ways to filter out a lot of those things, and the model itself is also fairly robust to anomalous scores input like that as well.
So with the rating, is this something you're gonna be able to kind of tie into the cheaters? Where I go in and I'm like, I shot a 42 out on Dretzka longs today, and you're looking at my regular ratings and you're going, really? Like, did you? Like, is that something you're gonna be able to look at and say like, well, this person shot clearly way better than what their normal ratings are. We're gonna filter that out, or we're going to send a little pop-up on their phone, say liar, liar, pants on fire? Or is there a way you can now use the rating system to help with other aspects of UDisc?
Yeah, interesting question. I think what we want to say here is that we want people to enjoy disc golf how they want to enjoy it. There are many ways to play a round of disc golf, and not all of those ways involve following every rule in the rule book letter by letter. If you don't want to give yourself a foot fault on a solo round because you stepped on your disc, or it just is going to increase the fun factor to not take that shanked shot into the woods and throw another one. These are all, I think, valid ways to enjoy the game of disc golf. And one person might call it cheating. We call it, this is what casual rounds look like sometimes. So
yeah, I suppose because
go ahead, Matt, if you want to expand
I was gonna say
on
some
that.
people probably use UDisc for all sorts of different things. If you're gonna play a regular round with your buddies and you guys each get 4 mulligans, and so that's when I'm playing with my buddies I get 4 mulligans, but when I play by myself I'm a serious golfer and I take my score. So I guess those 4 mulligan rounds would just show up in there anyway, and it's hard to maybe filter those out or include or disclude them. Yeah, that's interesting.
We actually do have ways to exclude certain rounds from your profile stats already. If /win we end up rolling round ratings up to a player rating, we'll use either that same concept or a similar concept, so you can go ahead and if you knew you took a mulligan on every hole and wanted to exclude that from your stats and from your eventual player rating, you can go and turn that off. We also would, automatically exclude doubles rounds, for example. This one of the interesting things about UDisc round ratings is doubles rounds can be rated. It's just another score at a course, and they can get a rating. One of the advantages of having sort of a course-based, performance-based model.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add too is, with our system, if you see somebody post a rating on the internet and you don't know them and you don't know like how they typically play a casual round, it may not be useful to compare yourself to them. But if you have a certain group of friends that you play with and you know that you guys all follow, a certain set of rules when you play, or you don't play the paths as OB on a certain course because your friends just don't like doing that, then it is valid to compare yourselves to each other because you know that you play sort of the same way. And I think that might seem weird to people that are used to like the PDGA rating system, which is only for sanctioned rounds using the PDGA rulebook, which is great. It serves its purpose. But in this case, it's worth saying that if you see Brody post around at 300 and whatever he posted at Sunset Park, I'm assuming he probably followed PDGA rules, but if somebody else posts something like that, you may not know. They might have taken 2 shots on each hole, and that's totally fine. That might be just how they want to play. I think when we get a little bit further, it's very likely that we'll have some different kind of competitive rating that we take into account rounds that, in a certain setting, whether it be a league or an event or something like that. But for the time being, this is really just a tool for people to measure their own individual progress as they continue to get better at the sport. So we really hope people use this to compare to themselves and to people that they are familiar with. And if you're all playing in the same event, then, you can all compare to each other, assuming you're using the same rules.
And to yourself.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing. Over the years, people have sometimes complained about scores on leaderboards, and obviously an 18-hole course is not a real score. But there might be some guy who got a 42 and nobody knows who he is. And, it might just be the case that person throws 2 shots on every hole, and that's just how they always play. And they still want to keep score, and they want a record of that. It's not that they're trying to sandbag the leaderboard. It's just that that's how they play casual rounds, and maybe they've never played a tournament before. And that's great. We want to encourage people to just generally play disc golf and enjoy the sport that we love and get outside and, throw these round plastic circles at metal baskets. That's really all we want.
I'm thinking of all this possible scenarios and features and future things, because one of the, I would say, downsides of the PDGA rating system that we've heard for years are events like USDGC, where they have different rules for different holes.
Mm-hmm.
They had stroke and distance on a couple holes, and the PDGA ratings kind of get a little fluky when you do something like that, as opposed to, I think, a UDisc one where if everyone's playing by the same rules, the round rating would be, I don't want to say more accurate because that's a bad way to put it, but it would be more what's a good way to put that? Maybe more comparable to other things. So do you see a future where you're having UDisc tournaments where maybe strokes aren't even counted and it's all round rating? Would it make a difference?
Yeah.
At that point, you could literally do different layouts and different players, like Terry's scenario, the 10 down versus the 5 down. If you could say, all right, all AMs are going to shoot this, all pros are going to shoot this, but we're playing in one big pool, you don't have to worry about so to speak, strokes, you could literally compare UDisc ratings.
It's an interesting point. Yeah, I never envisioned a competition that's based purely on ratings rather than pure strokes, but it brings up some interesting ideas. Maybe you have a friend who lives across the country and you want to have like a remote round together and determine a winner after you play two completely different courses. I suppose you could use ratings to do that. You know, if you agree to follow the same rule sets regarding mulligans and foot faults and OBs and all these things. Yeah, I don't know if it's this harkens back. I think the PDGA had a tournament in Australia or something. Am I remember this right? Where it was
yeah, you're essentially thinking of the Women's Global, which is 100% predicated on this, that all women literally around the world at every different course are playing, and then they get their 2 rated rounds, and then the average of those 2 rated rounds are then compared against everyone else within their division throughout the entire, around the entire world. And so, yeah, it is interesting to think about, does this open up that functionality and capability, and is it more robust and accurate versus what's being used from, a women's global perspective? Maybe not. Yeah, I mean,
I foresee a Terry Miller tournament with UDisc round ratings, and then people can just it literally wouldn't matter what holes you shot, would it? Like, if someone, in theory, if I played all shorts and you played all longs, and my 16 down is rated whatever and your 2 over is rated whatever, I'd be really curious to see how that would work out.
Yeah.
Give it a try, see what happens.
Yeah, that's right. Terry, run a tournament.
I was thinking, and maybe this is a tangential question for you guys, but along those lines is, ratings-based events haven't been, we'll say, a massive hit within the PDGA, in my opinion. Rather than classifying you by age or gender or pro versus am, it's just strictly based on ratings, and they're available. Anyone can run those at any time. You just rarely see it happen. And then I guess along those lines, you wonder, is this make that more appealing with the ratings in the way in which yours are calculated and in the way yours are played, as opposed to the way those are done? I think that's an interesting question. You guys could be revolutionizing divisions. I mean, if you think about it.
Sure.
Ratings-based
divisions. To me, the most interesting thing that we can do, and this kind of goes back to the golf handicapping system, the most interesting thing we can do is equalize the playing field. And if we were to do something like this, we would probably not use the same numerical scale that round ratings are on, but we would probably reuse the math behind it to say, this is the score adjustment that we need to make at the start of the round for every person in the field in order to give everybody an equal chance of winning the whole thing. No matter where their starting skill comes up. You could have Paul McBeth in the tournament, and you could have me in the tournament, and you could have, I don't know, my mom who's only played a handful of rounds in the tournament, and start them off on equal footing.
I'm just thinking like how cool it could be. I should say this for my new app, JDisc. No, but to be able to walk up to a tournament or walk up to a course with Terry Miller and say, maybe that we haven't played, and say, hey, we want to be competitive, and have UDisc say, okay, well, Terry should shoot the longs because this course has long pads. Terry should shoot the longs on these 5 holes where John shoots the shorts, and that would be a much more even round for you two competitively. Being able to like have UDisc create, so to speak, custom maps based on where obviously that relies a lot on your ambassadors who keep the course up to date, but being able to walk up and say, hey, these 2 rounds based on where you guys are and your UDisc rating, this is the course you should shoot and this is the course you should shoot. That'd be really interesting. All
yeah, right. That's an interesting idea. I don't know if we've exactly discussed doing it that way, but I think the concept of just like equalizing, I like it. Maybe slightly more complicated than the route we've been thinking.
Dude, you got a data analyst next to you.
That's interesting.
Just give them some Python and a formula and it'll pop out, right? That's how that works.
One of the features that we've introduced recently, we've kind of called it layout classification. You may have seen these little tags on courses and layouts, just classifying the overall difficulty, what we think your experience is going to be like. That sort of solves similar problems in the sense that we want people to be able to choose a course and maybe even at a certain course, choose a layout that's going to fit their skill set at that time. So, a Maple Hill is a great example for all these things. They have tons of different layouts and different ways to play the course. If really are a glutton for punishment, you're going to choose golds or diamonds. If you want to, have a more fun round, or maybe your skills just aren't there yet, you might choose reds or blues. And we have little tags in the app that kind of quantify what your experience is going to be like in terms of both length of the layout, how far are you going to have to throw the disc, as well as the technicality level. How many trees are you going to hit? How much water is there? Elevation changes and things like that. And this system is based on the same model behind round ratings. Sort of a recommendation for your skill set. Where are you going to have the best time?
You guys just mentioned, for instance, like Brody and posting a 300 plus score. I think rating. I think one of the initial questions, especially because the scale is unique in terms of 1 to 300 plus, is there such a thing as a perfect score? Is there such a thing as a maximum that somebody can get to? And then maybe the follow-up to that is, if I shoot an 18-hole pitch and putt and I shoot we'll call it a perfect 36, and birdie every hole, clearly that's going to have a different rating than if I shoot that at a much more challenging course, right?
Yeah.
But first talk about like the scale, and is there a perfect round or a perfect number?
Yeah, great question. There's no theoretical upper limit to the scale. We kind of chose 300 because there's a very, very tiny percentage of rounds that we've observed in the past that have exceeded 300. We think it's going to be very rare. But to your example, for like a 9-hole pitch and putt versus a much harder course, the way that the system is based on is we essentially make a prediction on the specific layout that you're playing, how what we call the standard average player would shoot on that layout. So we might predict on this 9-hole pitch and putt that the standard average player is going to shoot even, I don't know, or maybe a few under par. Or a more championship level course, 18-hole course that's really difficult and really long, we might predict that the standard player is going to shoot 10 over par, something like that. Your round rating is generated based on a comparison to that standard average player. Not just the raw number of strokes, but how many standard deviations from the standard average player you are. So at the 9-hole pitch and putt, we found that the very easy courses and shorter courses, fewer holes, tend to cap out earlier than more challenging courses. 9-hole, if you score a perfect round at a very easy 9-hole course, the best you could possibly do might be somewhere in the 200s. But if you score even, 10 or 11 under at a Maple Hill Gold, you might already breach that 300 benchmark, which we think kind of accurately represents, the impressiveness of your round, right? It may not be so impressive to birdie every hole at a very, very easy course, but it's more impressive to birdie half the holes at a really difficult course. So really, if you're really trying to reach for the most impressive rounds and get the highest rating you can, then you have to choose the harder courses. And that's just the way it is. You might not be able to exhibit the most impressiveness at the easy courses.
Have you, and this is obvious, this might be a very difficult question, is there a best round that you've seen in the UDisc? Like someone's like, well, you're like, holy crap, someone got like a 324, and have you seen anything like that? What is, and maybe for privacy's sake you can't say, but maybe the course even? Like what's have you noticed anything out of the ordinary or crazy?
Let's throw that to the chat. If anybody's got some
Yeah.
amazing rated rounds in the chat, we'd love to hear about them. We still assign a rating to we have assigned ratings to all of these fake scores that people put in and post on the internet. So those, if somebody puts in an ace on every hole at Maple Hill Golds, then it'll get a rating. The number will pop up, but it's meaningless. So realistically, personally, on the rounds that I've seen, the best rated rounds have been doubles rounds and pro rounds. I think I saw like a 317 on a doubles team that I played with, which was one of the highest I've personally
we've seen a few above 300 for doubles for sure. In fact, I had a friend reach out last weekend who shot a 296, and they shot 17 down on one of the airborne courses, but it wasn't quite 300. So it was the Red Fox course, if you're familiar. They're like one of the easier courses, but yeah, that is a question we've gotten from a few people. Like, I shot minus 18 in a doubles round. Why isn't it 300? And it's just purely, this course wasn't that difficult. Getting in minus 18 on any course is great. That's awesome. Good job. But it's not nearly as hard as shooting like 10 or 11 down at Maple Hill Golds.
So the 2023 Disc Golf Pro Tour season, have you run round ratings on all of those rounds?
No, we haven't.
I thought for sure
sorry.
you'd go back. Well, I was just trying to think.
Can you do that real quick? We'll wait.
Just real quick. Well, I was just thinking, like, I would be curious to know who shot the best round this year. Because with different courses and different events, like, someone's 13 at, like you said, Maple Hill is different than someone's 11 at Jonesboro. And I'd be curious to know if we looked back and, like, the UDisc Awards, who did shoot according to UDisc, who shot the best round this year? An MPO and an FPO, going back to the scorecards and like, what round, round 3 at Jonesboro, so-and-so shot a 12. Woo, that's the best round of the year. And we're going to give them a little, a golden UDisc hat or something.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. A couple points there is, we've really tried to calibrate and tailor this system to most people and not the best people, not the best people, but the best disc golf players. So, it's just not calibrated for the pros. We haven't run it on the 2023 Pro Tour season. Might be interesting to take a look. But we have other ways to measure pros' performances that you can check out on UDisc Live stats. We've got world rankings up there. We've got the Pro Tour standings. There are various ways that we have to measure the pros. One interesting thing that's more related to round ratings is I think in a blog post last year we did publish something trying to quantify the best rounds of the season, and it was generated using the same kind of core model, a different instance of the same model calibrated for the pros. So you could check out that blog post. I don't know if I can remember what it's called. Something like end of season superlatives.
Oh, the Iron Hill round last year from Joel Freeman.
That was up there. I don't know if it was.
But it was, yeah.
It was the tournament that he won, the Silver Series.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yes.
It was definitely on the
Butler County.
Butler County. Yeah. Are we going to see UDisc round ratings next year on the Pro Tour? Like, are we going to see when I go to UDisc Live and we're going to see, hey, here's Jonesboro, like I said, and I can follow live and can the system do ratings on the fly? If I'm only 9 holes in, can it give me a rating for 9 holes and keep that rating running? Because that's something I don't believe the PDGA can do right now because of the way it takes in all the factors of all the players. We've seen after rounds, everyone's round rating is unofficial because they can shift up to a couple points. Mm-hmm. Will the UDisc round be able to kind of give me an on-the-fly rating after 3 holes? I'm 3 down. I'm sitting at 222.
Or on pace for.
Yeah. Good question. Again, I don't think our system is really calibrated to the pros, so I think it's unlikely round ratings in their current form would make it onto UDisc Live, but they may make it onto our events platform, which is for really the everyday player, and we could do something like that. We could provide an estimated rating or your rating so far through this mini holes, and kind of update that on the fly live. So check out our events platform. May make it onto there.
Well, and I guess what I'm thinking about specifically is if, again, even selfishly, this weekend in a couple days, I'll go to Vegas. We're gonna have a B tier. It's got a number of 1,000 rated players. Aaron Gossage and Parker Welk and Cameron Messerschmidt and
this
Jacob
is Terry's
Cordes.
subtle plug, by the way.
Yeah, totally. Make sure you tune in for the coverage whenever I edit it. But just seeing if any of those guys then turn around and potentially use UDisc as their backup scorecard. And I think that will also give us a little tease. And I know, as you guys have just stated, this isn't necessarily geared or structured specifically toward our highest, most competitive, highest rated players, but it will be somewhat, I think could be a snapshot as to what it looks like for when some of those guys are playing this weekend. I feel like this is might be one of the stronger fields that we've seen that may potentially then use the system. When they log in, let's say you're playing this weekend, everyone's doing their scoring on PDGA Live because that's required or the primary use, and then Parker Welk says, hey, I'm going to keep score for us here. At the end of that round, all this should show up for them as well, just the same, right? Just like any other scorekeeping opportunity?
As long as the course meets the requirements of having smart layouts with enough play data on them, then yes.
And that might be difficult because for the simple fact that this particular event this weekend, I think their Sunset has a million different layouts based on who's in town and if it's casual versus a tournament. And I think this layout is almost particular and maybe even exclusive to this year's tournament. So that it may negate it for that reason if they've changed enough holes.
I would hope that they would have the layout set up at least a few days in advance for people to practice, and hopefully, somebody's updating it in UDisc. So there's at least a decent chance that they will get some ratings.
I've got so many questions once I get there.
Once you get there. So I go out with a group of my buddies, and I'm the one keeping score. I have UDisc Pro. I have the same 3 or 4 guys. I click them because that's what we do. Does it give round ratings to everybody? Or even if they're not UDisc Pro members, and then I can just say, oh, dude, you shot a...
No, you collect $5 from each of them and say, hey, I'll tell you what it is, because that offsets your pro membership.
Now, you're not wrong, Terry. Does it do that? And if I can, because I believe I can send them scorecards and things like that. To be honest, I'm not usually the one keeping score. My buddy Steve usually does, because he has his UDisc all set up that way, and then he just sends us cards. But how exactly does that work for round ratings? If I'm not a pro member... when he sends me my card, it's probably not going to keep that round rating only if I'm a pro member, but it will on his.
Yes. Yep. So on your friend's phone who has pro, they'll be able to see all of it. If you don't have pro, when you look at the scorecard, you won't see it, but it is calculated and stored.
Okay.
So upgrade to pro and you can see it, or there's a free 2-week trial. You can always try it that way, and then see all your rounds. One cool thing too that we recently did is we made the free version of the app. There used to be a 10 scorecard restriction on there where you could only keep 10 scorecards, and then you couldn't keep score anymore. And now we've gotten rid of that, so you can actually keep score for unlimited rounds. You can only view your last 10, but you can continue to keep making new scorecards forever on a free account.
And if you sign up for pro, it lets you view your prior rounds that were hidden before.
Yeah, exactly. And if the rounds had ratings and they met, the requirements to have ratings, those would show up as well.
Yeah, and rounds after October 15th or something along those lines are getting rated. Is that correct?
Yep, I believe that was the release date of this feature. There is a caveat there. If you were a beta tester or you are friends with somebody who was a beta tester, they've been getting ratings for a bit longer.
Sure.
So there are some people who have, a few months worth of ratings at this point.
Okay.
That leads me to break down essentially what's offered in UDisc free version, and then what are you getting? What are people getting when they're paying for, and how much is it when they're paying for UDisc Pro? Can you guys break those down and give everyone a refresher?
Sure. I mean, the best place to look is probably within the app. If you go to the More tab and go to UDisc Pro account, there's a nice little matrix that sort of lays out all the various things that are available. But essentially, Pro allows you to view your whole scoring history all in one place. Everything gets synced to your account, so you can get a new phone, and all of your scorecards will just come back as soon as you log into your account. You can easily share with friends. And lots of other fun things that
I could say a few. One of the favorite features that I think has it been around for a year, or I think around a year, is course traffic is a Pro only feature. So you can go either on the web or in the app, visit a course page, and you can see how busy it tends to be at the particular day of the week and time that you're planning on going, and how busy it actually is at that moment. So you can plan your disc golf adventures a little better.
Yeah, and Pros also, to be on the leaderboards, you need a Pro account, and then to keep score on your smartwatch, you also need a Pro account. But the great thing is that the free tier of UDisc is really full featured. We let you try everything. There's a 2-week trial of Pro if you want to get the taste of what it's like to score on your watch, or to see your full scoring history all in one place. And the real-time course traffic stuff that we've had for about a year is really, really fun. If you're somebody that if you live in a place with a lot of courses, it's super useful to be you can kind of feel out the trends for certain courses. There's that, I know, at least for me where I live, there's a few courses that are just super popular around lunchtime during the week. And sometimes I love to get out and play a quick round, over my lunch break. But I know which courses to avoid because those ones are always really busy. But these other two on the other side of town, nobody goes there for some reason at lunch. So that's definitely something that is really fun to use. And, when we first put that out, a lot of people had questions like, is this really accurate? Is it really useful? And it turns out that it really is, because there's quite a few people that use UDisc, and it's also pretty easy to extrapolate from normally we expect there to be, X number of people keeping score at this course. But if there are more than that, at a certain time, we know that the course is a lot busier than we expected it to be. So it ends up being a very accurate tool to use. The only way that could go wrong is if there's let's say at that course, there might not be as many people keeping score on UDisc that day because they're all using PDJ Live or some other sort of event that is happening that isn't being scored on UDisc. But in general, you're going to find that to be a very useful thing. But also just want to make sure to highlight that the free version lets you do everything. And you can also do the 2-week trial to try, everything else out before you decide to part with any money.
And that was the follow-up is, I know you guys had a price increase at one point. I don't know, I guess any price increase, there's no one that's probably called you up and heck yeah, thank you so much for charging more. But it resonates differently with everyone, and people that appreciate not only the back end, but then supporting a company that's doing so much for all of our enjoyment in multitude of ways. But what does a Pro subscription look like? And then is that a full one? Is that exactly a year from date of purchase? How, just kind of break down the basics for somebody that might be on the fence that is kind of wondering some of those generic questions.
Yep. UDisc Pro subscription is $30 a year, $29.99 technically. And it is, 1 year subscription. So you're going to subscribe either through the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store or on udisc.com. And that will it'll be, a year from when you buy it. Or if you have, some time left on your account, then it would obviously not take that away from you. The way it works now, though, is you can't actually renew until, your previous subscription is done. So it's a year at a time. We are really happy with, just the number of people that have given us feedback. Like you said, people don't always reach out and be like, hey, it's great that you increased the price. But we do actually get people, more than you'd expect, saying things like that because they understand that a company like ours, needs to be sustainable. And we have been growing a lot. We're up to 22 people full time. Even just server costs alone are well into the 6 figures per year at this point, for the amount of infrastructure that we have and a crazy, even the data science stuff that we're doing with round ratings, like that costs real money to run, these huge calculations and chug through millions and millions of rounds. So the things that we're doing, we put this money to good use, and most, the vast majority of it goes back into employees and giving people jobs in disc golf, which is, still something that we're proudest of. All these new features require a lot of effort and planning, and people putting their full-time attention towards it for months and months and months. And I don't know if we directly said it earlier, but even round ratings, like Doeke has been working on this for close to, or maybe slightly over 3 years now. So this wasn't just, something that we snapped our fingers and it came into existence, or it was some simple formula. This has had a lot of thought put into it. And while I have this moment, I do really want to give a big shout out to Doeke for all the work he's done on this. He is underselling himself on how talented he truly is. And the sport, truly the sport as a whole, is really lucky to have somebody like him who is willing to dedicate his career path towards disc golf. It's just a super exciting time. And there's also another member of the data science team, Anthony, who has certainly pitched in and helped out with some of this stuff, but Doeke is kind of the main person with this particular project. So yeah, just, the only reason we're able to get people this smart working in disc golf is to have money to pay them and to give them a fulfilling and, interesting problem to solve. I think that that's something that people, when we talk with people outside of the sport, it's always very interesting, because it's disc golf, is there really anything that hard or complicated about it? And it turns out that there really is, and there are tons of problems that are yet to be solved. And I think that this is kind of the tip of the iceberg, and something that, like I said, we put over 3 years into solving this problem. And I don't think it's totally solved yet. There's still a lot more to be built upon with what we've done right now. This is really just the first step here, but you guys have already touched on some of the future projects that we're already talking about and working on just through this conversation. And I think that that's really exciting that people are sort of seeing, when we put smart layouts out 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't really say exactly what they were for, but the whole point of doing that was so that we could have a rating system. We needed more reliable course data, and we needed a way for people to say, this pin's in the B position today, which turns out was a very complicated problem, which made all of the code in the app and everything just, with complexity. But now we're kind of at this end goal, which has been really fulfilling and great to see. And also want to highlight, while I have this chance, Doeke did the data science, the hard calculation side of it, but we also have a whole team of people building the Android side of things and the iOS side of things and the web side of things and the marketing and the growth and everything that has to come together to put out a big release like this. And then our customer support or customer success team, getting slammed with people asking questions about round ratings. It's been certainly an interesting last 10 days or so since this has been released, and we're really happy that we have received all the feedback we have. Another interesting one, we've only had this out for about a week, and over 300,000 rounds have already been scored with round ratings. So that just gives you maybe a little idea of sort of the number of people that have already been exposed to this, which is really exciting to us. I think that's quite a large number, potentially more rounds than have had PDGA ratings all year so far. I don't really know if that's true, but within a few weeks, it certainly would eclipse that number.
So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't try to ask you what feature's coming next. What are you what's, I know you guys have a roadmap that you probably plan at least 2 years in advance. And if you can't,
you're giving us too much credit there, I think.
Well, you said this was being worked on.
No, they said it just took 3 years.
Oh, it took 3 years.
The roadmap might have said left turn at a year, and Doeke is well, we're not quite there. Let's keep going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted to have this out 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
But what's major within, that's either just been nagging on you guys or nagging or excited from the customers, whatever you want to word
now
it?
That this is out of the way, what's the biggest feature request? What is it that that your users really, really want that you guys are not yet giving them?
Oh, man. There's a lot of things that people want. I touched on it earlier that the hardest thing for us as a company is always to decide what to work on, because there just are so many things that would be fun, or that people are asking us for. I can tell you that, I'm happy to share a few things we're working on right now, because the easiest thing, it's very hard for us to be like, yeah, this will come out on X date.
Yeah,
but there
me
are some
too.
projects that we are actively working on right now that will come out. So, at the moment, we're working on a few projects related to improving some of the stats within the app. Um, a lot of the charts and metrics that we're able to share within the app right now were built before smart layouts existed, so they don't fully take into account the fact that you played from the short T to the A pin. So we're going to be improving that quite a bit within the scorecard, and outside of the scorecard. But that's really exciting. I'm personally really excited for that one. It's going to allow you to kind of see a different view of your own game as you're playing, as you're keeping score. We're also doing some stuff with improved course filtering at the moment, which is something that we've needed a revamp of for quite a while. So, one of the ones that I'll spoil, we just released the course difficulty stuff that Doeke touched on, where we have now a scale that's kind of based on like skiing. So there's like, the circles and the diamonds and things to denote like how difficult the course is. So we're going to finally have a way for you to filter courses based on how difficult they are, which I think is going to be fun. And then another one that is with our beta team, actually, I think it's at least with our iOS beta team, it's about to be in Android if it isn't already. We're finally adding distance to pin on the Apple Watch and Android Wear OS watches. So you'll finally be able to just go, oh, cool, I'm 200 feet away, which is very fun, and personally very excited for that one as well.
How accurate is that with GPS? Within 15 feet? Is that kind of the...
Yeah, I mean, phones have, like, the best reading you're generally going to get on phone GPS is like 10 to 15 feet.
Okay.
I don't think, this isn't something, we already have distance to pin in the scorecard on the phone. So it's the same thing. It's really just on your watch instead of on your phone, which is potentially more useful if you're stepping up to your lie you want to know. I would not recommend using this to determine if you're inside or outside of Circle 1. I think this is more like, am I 200 feet away or 240 feet away? Like, making a disc selection is how I would personally use it. Like, should I grab my mid or my putter or something like that?
No, that makes a lot of sense, because we've said, not that this is going to, in general, like replace Bushnell, but we have this would be, in theory, faster than pulling out, unzipping, tagging it. If you're, depending on what your accuracy you're looking for, if you just want to know, am I 210 or 240 out, you can look at your watch, that's great. If you care that you're 210 versus 222, that's a different story then. That's where Bushnell is going to really kind of zone you in. And we've got, I'm going to throw him under the bus, our buddy Steve. He Bushnells the circle a lot of times because it's not marked at your local course. So he'll just go out and tag it and be like, yeah, I'm outside the circle.
Yeah, he's only been playing for 30 years.
I know. I know.
Idiot.
Yeah.
But,
of course, a laser rangefinder is going to be much more accurate, and that's great. But I think, in a pinch, or if you're just really quickly wanting to know roughly how far away you are, it's going to be a really nice tool to have in your bag.
Oh, it's going to force me to get an Apple Watch at some point.
Yeah, and while I'm mentioning that, we partnered with Garmin a year ago to finally put UDisc on the Garmin watches, and they have had distance to pin since they were released about a year ago, or a little over a year ago. And we finally were able to find the time to add this to some of the other watch platforms that we support, which it's very complicated. Every single watch is totally different. It's totally different code. It shares nothing with the mobile apps. It's like its own app, basically. So we're always having to learn new things and learn expertise in new devices. And watches are not very easy to work with in a lot of ways. But once you get it done, it feels great.
That's something you don't want to touch for another year. We're just going to leave the watch app alone, and we'll catch up on that one later. I can completely understand.
As kind of a side note, Doeke, because we've seen and known Matt for all of these years, and including like early data entry on the course, like actually doing some of that stuff.
Literally, I saw someone pulled up a picture the other day on Reddit, and it had, I think it was first year of the Pro Tour, and it was Matt doing that. Someone's like, "This is Ricky this is Nico and this is Yuli and Germ, I think, but who's the guy in the middle? And I'm like, that's Matt from UDisc. Like literally, he was keeping score for them, probably, you know. And while Josh is like panicking and sweating, trying to make sure the servers stay up that year, you know.
Yep, precisely. Yeah,
so
exactly
knowing that we've seen him and not as often now, but where are you in terms of consuming, playing, obviously disc golfing, programming, everybody thinks like, oh, I want to get a job in disc golf, I'll just play disc golf all the time, which we all know, all four of us know is very wrong. But where are you on the scale of your participation in your activity in terms of disc golf?
Sure. Yeah, I play multiple times a week, as much as I can, really. I'll play the occasional tournament. My tournament participation has dropped off a little bit over the last years. Having a kid will do that to you, but yeah, I get out and play as much as I can. I've got a basket set up in the basement with a tarp behind it to practice my putting, and 20 putters down there to try to get as many reps as I can. So yeah, I'm as much of a discaholic as the next guy, I'd say.
Is there anyone at UDisc that is like genuinely not a disc golfer that's like, maybe they do a great job and obviously in the things they do, but like disc golf is just not a passion of theirs and they're, just a useful tool within your portfolio?
That's a great question. So at UDisc, everybody plays disc golf. Everybody is not necessarily obsessed with playing disc golf, but everybody at least enjoys it. And everybody had played and, enjoyed playing before they started working at UDisc. So far, we haven't hired anybody that like is unfamiliar with the sport or, hasn't played it. But there are varying levels of dedication amongst the team. We have all the way from Noah, who was on, they won the collegiate championship last year, was it? The first place team, he's, a very highly rated player who plays MPO, all the way down to some people who are very much beginners who, don't play very often, but still enjoy the sport. And Doeke, I will say, is probably top 3.
Ooh, okay. Who's above him?
The UDisc leaderboard.
Yeah, who's above him?
Well, Noah's definitely number 1.
Okay, yeah.
It's hard to say after that. We've got a couple of young guns that can throw, 500 feet, and it's a little bit humbling when you're playing with them.
This kind of ties together, especially with Doeke and coming on a few years ago. Right now, and we all know everything from not only just the slow part of the season specifically, but then also general economy and everything else. But right now, is UDisc hiring? And if so, and if you're even not right now, what might you be looking for in the future?
We are not at this exact moment. Okay. It's very likely that we will be in the early to late spring. I think that, it's it's always tough at the end of the year. We're trying to figure out like what budgets and things look like for the next year, but we're definitely going to be hiring in the spring. So The best place if you're interested is udisc.com/jobs. We post there. We also will post on social media. We'll also put the banner in the app. So when you open the app, that'll be there. The one thing that we are hiring for before that will be interns. So we have summer internships generally in engineering or marketing and growth that we do each year. And our goal is to have that up in December. So if you are a college student who is looking for a really fun summer internship with a really cool team, don't need to look anywhere but here. But yeah, we'll have those up in December, and with the goal to start interviewing in probably January to line up summer of 2024 internships.
Okay. I had a question earlier that now just came back to me. So when I think of, and I'm sure you guys probably have the number of how many players roughly are rated like 1,000 and above, or maybe in a different scenario, how many like 1,100 rated rounds and above we have. Those are, 1,000 is obviously more in terms of sheer number. What I'm trying to relate that to is like our 300 rated rounds. Like how exclusive do you feel like 300 rated rounds, and is there an exclusivity you want to keep to that? Like there's only been so many, 30 or 40 1100 rated rounds. How exclusive do you envision what that threshold is at 300, or maybe it's 310 and above or whatever?
Like a percentage?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Do you ever
top 3%?
Is there a projection or a guess as to how exclusive you feel like some of those really high numbers will be will come in at?
Yeah, I've got so I'm not sure how outdated this is, but I think it should be roughly right. For a 300 or above round, we think it's less than a fraction of a percent of rounds are going to be rated 300 or above. I'll give you a couple benchmarks. At the 200, maybe I'll go to like 250 first. Even at 250, we're seeing roughly around 1% are going to be rated 250 or above.
Wow. Okay.
Keep in mind, this is for probably a different audience than a competition tournament audience. But regardless, 200 benchmark is another good one. We're seeing something like 16 or 17% of rounds are going to be rated 200 or above. Roughly the 150-ish range is sort of the middle of the scale. So half of rounds are going to be rated at or above 150, 155 or so, and so on down the list. The 100 benchmark is something like 90% of rounds are going to be rated 100 or above.
He's saying you don't have to worry about that, Terry.
No, I was just thinking like if your UDisc rating somewhere keeps up or coincides with a bowling average, you're probably doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? Like for some of those numbers that you just described.
If I could bowl my UDisc rating,
only
I would be in heaven.
Yeah, if only.
Yeah, so. It's funny. It's kind of funny that it ended up like that. Yeah, we didn't really plan the scale, based on bowling or anything like that. It was more, it seemed like it made sense. We really like that there's sort of some clean benchmarks for people to hit. Like what we published in the blog is that like getting to your first round above 100 is great for, somebody brand new to the sport. Getting to 200 is somebody, that's getting a little more serious. And then trying to get as close to 300 as you can is like the ultimate goal for a pro. But it is, in a way, it kind of is akin to bowling. If you bowl in the 200s, you're probably pretty happy with your with your game. But at the same time, it is a completely different thing. It's just kind of fun.
Yeah, and Johnny and I actually did briefly talk about this. I think before we even knew we were going to talk to you guys tonight, we talked about it this weekend during our round of just like the scale is just really unique in that sense.
Because bowling is flat out raw numbers. It's a score, number of pins
finite number, so on and so
forth.
And
there's a cap. Bowling is capped at 300 too.
That's what I mean. And then you think of the PDGA rating where there's a benchmark. There's a lot of benchmarks, but one namely being 1,000. And then whether that's your permanent rating or even a rated round, that's a significant benchmark within disc golf. And obviously 1,100 is just a whole nother story. So and then thinking about a batting average, and I was just trying to relate like where in the world 300-ish kind of came from with you guys. So I love a correlation, but yet it's not exactly spot on with anything else in particular. So it makes sense. I like it.
Yeah, one thing to note there is just that we think people are going to get used to it. We've only internally had this specific scale for I don't know, Matt, maybe
Mid-August.
A month or so.
Mid-August, right?
I don't think we even had like the
that was
all of
retro.
our rounds on the scale since only a couple months, something like that, and most of us on the team are already pretty used to it, and we know when we've shot a rating that's well above what we hoped for. We know what ratings personally correspond to a subpar, a poor performance personally. So we've gotten used to it pretty quickly, and we think in general people will kind of start to figure out what the benchmarks are for their personal games and for their buddies, and we think people are going to get used to it.
What's the most inaccurate
I think
or dumbest thing you've heard so far?
Sorry.
most inaccurate
thing.
or just blatantly wrong or dumbest take or just misconception, whatever you want to call it, however you want to flower that up. But what's the dumbest, most inaccurate thing you've seen so far with regards to this?
Oh, I don't know if I've seen anything dumb.
Yeah, you have. You're being
I think more than anything, it's just kind of general, misunderstanding. Like, we've had several people shoot a 9-under on a 9-hole course and be like, "Why isn't this rated 300?"
Sure.
Which
Sure.
you guys sussed out the reasoning pretty quickly. It's the course was not it's not possible really to get a 300 unless you aced every hole on the course, which, the course just isn't hard enough. It's not as impressive to shoot -9 at that easy pitch and putt course. I don't think we've had anything, I don't want to call anybody stupid by any means, but it's, there's always some interesting takes out there. A lot of people comparing it to other systems, which is fine. It's to be expected. But I think the point to drive home with that is we really are measuring something a bit different. This isn't a measuring competition. It's kind of a self-improvement metric more than anything right now. And it can be used to compare with friends. Like I said before, if you know that they adhere by the same rules and they're not throwing 2 discs on every hole and things like that. Anything you can think of, Doeke?
No, yeah. I mean, most of the questions that I've seen pop up or takes are things that we've, considered ourselves at some point and either addressed in the creation of the system or consciously didn't address. One thing that we haven't talked about much here is the fact that weather or conditions don't factor into round ratings at all, and people who are used to other systems might think that that's a major flaw. We think that it's just it's again measuring a different thing. Factoring in conditions explicitly is extremely difficult. It's hard to get accurate data for wind speed and the amount of precipitation at a very localized level. On the specific course you're playing at and not at the nearest airport, say. There was a trade-off for automatically adjusting ratings based on, say, a field of play for that day to try to capture something like a course conditions because we want these things to be broadly available. We chose to not make adjustments like that because that would require a larger field of play. We want you to be able to get a round rating if you're the only person on the course on that day. And that's just not possible to do if we're trying to make adjustments based on a field of play.
Yeah.
So that's one of the takes we've seen a lot. Why no weather? Why not make an adjustment? And it was a conscious decision. It's a trade-off, and this is the route we took because we think the wide availability and just the ability to measure yourself against the course is really what we're after.
And really, if people have an issue with it, they can always choose it to not be included in your statistics. Like, oh, this is
Sure.
I came out and it started pouring on me on hole 4. I finished up the round, but it became more casual than it started out with. Let's just not include that one. That's always a good option that you guys give, which I really like.
And that's totally valid. There's no problem with that. If you ever want to exclude a round, that's your prerogative. That's why we added it, because sometimes you're just not feeling it, but you still want to get out and play. You want to finish the round after you lost 3 discs. I'm sure we've all had one of those rounds.
Yeah, and I think weather too, just even as you were talking about it, I was thinking like, well, what happens when it starts raining on me on 4, but then it stopped on 9, but you came out an hour later and it didn't rain at all. And I played in the morning with 20-mile-an-hour winds, and you played in the afternoon with 35-mile-an-hour winds. Like, and trying to like make any kind of adjustment for every one of those scenarios.
Yeah. On an individual basis, that's very difficult. But obviously with statistics, when you put that, like you said, a grain of sand, that's a grain of sand on the beach, and it gets lost with all the different statistics. So
I think it's even more so, like, let's say 4 of you are playing the same hole, and when I'm putting, the wind is ripping, and then the wind dies, and you guys all have, no wind for your putt. Like, it's really, really hard to account for it properly. And, some of the systems out there, like, do in a certain way, but, unless every single person, I think, had, like, something to read the wind, for each shot, like, it's hard to really do properly.
It always happens to me. It's always the wind's
It's
fault.
always, yeah. Especially
the
that's
wind's
definitely your
fault.
problem. I'm going back to it. I just don't believe you. Nobody's like slammed their lid down and then yelled across the office. Did you see what that fucking idiot said on Reddit? Like, I don't believe you guys haven't had a reaction.
No, I've honestly, I've mentioned this to Josh on. It's Terry here. I mentioned this to Josh on the board that I've peeked in on Reddit quite a bit. And I haven't really seen anything crazy or really outrageous about this. This is just something that is that I think is people are going to get used to. You're going to see it's going to be no different than anything else. And I wouldn't say I'm kind of surprised because it's a new feature. The one thing I would love to be able to just throw out to the world is when you guys raised your prices for the Pro subscription, I saw so many people complain, like, am I getting this much more value out of it? Like, suddenly UDisc was going to stop developing. Like, nope, this is what you get right here, and no more. Like, that was one of the things that killed me a little inside when people were complaining about the change in price. I'm thinking, like, they're going to be giving you, like, I know these guys, they're going to continue to give you so much stuff. Like, this isn't the end of their development. Look at their history, and things like this are what really I think make it feel like you're getting such a good value for the yearly cost. It's people pay the PDGA for ratings. Like, that is one of the prime drivers, and I imagine this will probably be similar, maybe at an even bigger level because it can be casual. And whereas a PDGA, you only get ratings for tournaments. This I can get a rating for any round, which I think is going to be phenomenal.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we're, like you said, us, we're always going to be improving. And I don't think it's that unsurprising that most of the feedback has been positive, because this is one of the most requested things that has ever been asked of us, through the whole history of the app. And it's just something that we didn't quite have, when we do things, we really want to do them right. And we want to put a lot of thought into it. We could have done something simple years and years ago with a simple formula and just, start spitting out numbers. And I'm sure some people would have been fine with that. But we really wanted to make sure that we ran this through the rigor that it deserved, because we do think that it has, the chance to really become something that people look at to measure their game. And the thing that we're the most proud of with this is how accessible it's going to be. Like you said, any round you play can get a rating. You can play with a mulligan on every hole and get a rating. You can do all these different things and you're still going to be able to kind of compare it, to the ways you've played and to how your friends play and things like that, which is really fun. It's maybe more than some people are used to, but at the same time, the vast majority of people who play disc golf have never had any kind of rating ever. And it's not even like, 50% of people. It's like 98% of people that have ever played have never had any kind of rating. It's something, much bigger than that. So I think it's always tough because all of us being so like involved with disc golf, like it's sometimes you have to step back and realize that the sport is far bigger than anybody really realizes. And most people that play disc golf play very casually. And that's something that we are very proud that we're able to provide these interesting insights and tools for people of all skill levels. And maybe someday we'll tune this a little bit better so that it works for the pros. But we're certainly not done there. There's a lot more that can be done, and just at this point the fundamental work is done, and there's so much more that can be done and built upon it.
Well, awesome. I of course, as if Johnny and I don't gush enough over you guys, we appreciate all the things that you guys have been doing along with the rest of the team and the staff and everyone that has worked, and watching you guys from the very early beginnings then continue, and it's not really a secret that a lot of people, including us, have proclaimed UDisc as one of the number one most revolutionary game changers that we've seen in disc golf in our lifetime, with finding the courses and then also all the live scoring and yet all the other things you guys improve upon. So you have our love and admiration forever, and we really appreciate it. Is there anything else either we didn't touch on or anything else you'd like to say or address or throw out there before we let you guys go?
I think just one more shout out to the whole team that worked on this and just everything at UDisc. I think the thing that we always have to pinch ourselves that so many smart people wanted to devote their careers towards disc golf. And I know I said that before, but it's worth repeating. Like, we really have a solid team, and everybody is working towards the same goal of just making disc golf more accessible and getting more people out to play. And also, Doeke is awesome.
Well, Josh is asking us to ask Doeke about his chalk opinions.
Yeah, bro, no whiteboard? What year is this? This must be talked about. Tell us about it.
Gross. Whiteboard, are you kidding me? Disgusting. No, yeah, chalk opinions, sure. Yeah, there's a particular brand of Japanese chalk called Hagoromo that is the best chalk you've ever felt. It's the smoothest drawing experience. There was a crisis for a moment when the original company that made the chalk was going out of business. I think they ended up selling to another firm. Mathematicians all over the world were hoarding this chalk because they thought it was the last few boxes they were ever going to get. So Hagoromo, the best chalk you could ever get your hands on.
Damn, the best UDisc money can buy, the best chalk on the planet. Doeke needs it. So keep fueling him. Guys, if you have this chalk, make sure you send it in. All right, so where does this come from? I mean, I know you just said smooth writing, which I can't imagine more smooth than like a dry erase, for instance. But where's the affinity for chalk and chalkboards come from? Because most people have goosebumps right now, like I do, and the hair standing up just thinking about chalk and chalkboards.
I don't know. It's a mathematician thing, I think. Yeah, most mathematicians I know prefer chalkboards over whiteboards. Don't know exactly why, but I'm in that camp.
All right, like you're Goodwill Hunting or something. Jeez. Okay,
it's a little harder
Doeke,
to erase.
I was going to say, Doeke, you had one more thing you wanted to add?
Oh, I was going to say exactly what Matt said. Shout out to the whole team. I was far from the only person who's worked on this project. I at some point we had a big shout out. I think everybody on the team has touched this project at some point. And there are many aspects to make this work. The math is one of those aspects. The delivery to the mobile devices is another. The designs we think are amazing and beautiful. The planning of the entire project and the decision making about how it's going to look and how it's going to be presented to the users. Everybody on customer success who has been fielding questions and collecting even requests for this feature and feedback, and responding to all the questions that we've gotten. It's a huge effort from so many people on the team to make something like this work. And really all of the features that we work on are a huge team effort. So shout out to everybody who's worked on this and everything that we build.
Well, we'll double down on all of that. Again, the fact that you have that many paid staff members, you're looking to grow, you're looking to make continuous improvements and enhancements and everything else, and then make it all available on all the different platforms and phones and everything else is insane. In addition to the watches, like you said, a whole nother layer of difficulty there. The rest of the disc golf world, thanks you guys. We, of course, thank you personally, and we know that the rest of the disc golf world does. And thank you guys for joining us tonight and breaking this down and adding additional layers of insight and information for everyone else that might be wondering how and where this all came about. If they didn't get smarter in the last hour and a half, I don't know what else we can do to help them. This might be the most useful thing we've done in the entire year. So we really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, if anybody still has any questions about it, check out udisc.com/blog. There's a really nice article that lays out all the various aspects of round ratings and answers many of the questions we talked about today in some detail. So it's a great place. Otherwise, I also wanted to say thank you guys for having us, and we love what you guys do as well. And it's been great to just watch everything grow together.
Most certainly.
Well, thank you. And like I said, I think we're continuing to help push each other, but also some of the successes that any of us are experiencing are kind of just layered one on top of each other as we both work our ways through it. And thank you guys for being not only doing it, but also being like smart and stuff. because we know where we come up short. All right, Johnny, let's go order our chalkboard now. All right, guys, have a good night. We appreciate it.
Right.
Good night, guys.
See ya.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
I think it would take so much more than a chalkboard to make us smarter.
Oh, God.
But
yeah.
maybe that's a start. Just think if we had like things written on a chalkboard behind us right now.
No.
People would be impressed.
I have a whiteboard at work.
No,
That's
clearly
not.
F the whiteboard. Everybody's got a whiteboard.
I know.
Smart
wonder-
mathematician types have chalkboards.
I wonder if it has something to do with like the ease of erasing, like as on a whiteboard where like you're afraid to like brush up on it and erase it versus a chalk.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, see,
That's the
industry-
next Google question, right? Why do mathematicians use chalk? Like it auto-completed for me, although Google's probably listening to me. The
Google
very
listens
first
to
thing
our
that pops up
podcast.
says, using chalk and chalkboards is not only conducive to teaching and learning, but also has environmental benefits, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that doesn't say somewhere on Reddit r/math tells you why, but you'll have to read that for the after show. Either way, chalk's the way to go, I guess.
Only if you're smart.
Only, yeah, so
It might,
I'll stick to my
it might
non-sharpened pencil.
It might rule us out.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you to UDisc. It's funny because is incredible and useful and insightful as all of that is, it's fair to still say you and I are still not like a primary demographic, not just because we're in the disc golf community and involved in the production and media stuff the way we are, but just in general, you and I collectively combined play less disc golf than probably almost every one of our viewers.
Correct.
Like the fact that you may play anywhere from 2 to 10 rounds in a year. I may play 2 to 10 rounds in a year, maybe 20 max. That even sounds, that sounds high. We're not your primary users of something like UDisc for all of the capabilities and features, but I will double down, and I should have said it to them as well. I will double down that my most incredible use is when I went to Estonia recently, and every single time I wanted to know where a course was, that was my go-to. That was my default, was to use UDisc. And then because it was such a unique experience, as I think all international travel is, I was actually playing, and then I felt really compelled to leave some form of review. And I've become bigger on reviews because not only do reviews help me later if I ever do get to return, but hopefully they're helping others. But I also like treat reviews just like I do of a hotel or a restaurant. I treat them almost like a diary too, so that when I do go back to Jonesboro, which I haven't been to in 3 years, and there's the local pizza shop, and I genuinely don't remember like, oh, did I enjoy that or not? Well, if there's a Google review that I left, then again, I kind of treat it as a diary. Same could be said on UDisc, and I think it kind of self-perpetuates as you're traveling and taking in these new places. I mean, we're no Avery Jenkins.
No,
Avery
guy,
Jenkins over 1,500 courses.
1,500. That guy
and
racks
change.
up courses.
Course hoarding, collecting, acquiring, whatever he does. There's a lot of words for it. All right, so thank you again to those guys over at UDisc and the rest of the staff and crew and team that all make it happen. All right. Disc Golf Masters Tour.
Oh,
I was trying to think where we wanted to go next.
Yeah.
Let's quickly. I did reach out to Callie. I'd love to talk to her. Understandably, when she did see my message, she's like, I'm exhausted. It's been a heck of a week and weekend as she concluded the Disc Golf Masters tour. But do you have it up and running? Masters Tour finale that took place. I think I've got. Oh, I did have it. Oh, sorry. I had it for a sec.
The finale at North Cove?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I've got it
quickly
up right
touch on a few of our champions there.
Yeah, this was, as Terry said, the 2023 DGMT finale. In the MP40 division, Tony Farrow wins this one, shoots 19 under par, kind of crushing the rest of the field, beating David, Josh, Adam, Andrew, and Kevin McCoy, which is one of the first names that really kind of sticks out because he's old like us. Well, all these guys are old like us, to be honest. But Kevin goes way back with us. So Tony Farrow wins that, taking home $3,000. Congratulations, Tony. FP40, Sarah Hokum wins $900, beating Shannon Barker. MP50, the ageless wonder, Johnny McRae, shoots 9 under, beating Matt Peckham. I didn't realize Matt Peckham was MP50 now.
Oh, wow. He's been a while, like a long time.
Like a long time. So Matt Peckham beating him by 6 strokes, Johnny McRae. Third place, Robert Ryan. Going to FP50, it was a field of 1. Donna Barr wins that. In MP60, Chris Hartman shooting a 1 under, beating Mitch McClellan and Jay Gobrecht by 5 strokes. So Chris took home $2,000 in a field of 14. MP70, Mark Sherwood. MP80, Carlos Rigby. There's a bunch of I'll go through them because there's just a few of them. MA40, Brian Pyle. FA40, Brenda Wiltgen. MA50, Mark Goffey. FA50, Jacqueline Reiser. MA60, George Odorigo.
Also an AM World Champion.
Also the AM World Champion. You're right. MA70, Lee Redding. MA80, Ronald Bird. So those are the players who competed in the 2023 DGMT finale. Like you said, we'll have Callie on at some point to kind of give us a summary of how the season went, and hopefully maybe kind of get an idea of what next season's going to entail. If this is successful enough, because this was the first year. If she's going to continue this, I would make a guess that she is, but in general...
We ain't getting any younger.
No, the field, nobody's getting younger, Terry. That's how
that works. Well, yes, very exciting to have 1 year under her belt. I mean, just think of the whirlwind that it was 8 months ago. I got to do the math. 9 months ago when we just heard of it. Mm-hmm. When Callie joined us, broke it all down for us. And I know she could already, anytime you're on the road and you're either running tournaments or a full-time vendor and or playing or doing any combination of the three, there's a few dozen people that have done that. I think of, Mike Barnett, I think of Chuck Conley, and so on and so forth. A number of people, Mace Man, all those. Any one of them could write a book that would be wildly entertaining with the experiences they go through as you travel around the country. And then it's one thing that you're doing it as a player. We see this as a professional touring player. They too could write a book. A very different book is someone like Callie or Mike or Chuck, in this case, who are at these events, organizing these events, and or a main tournament director, and then having a hands-on experience with hundreds of people week in and week out. So therefore, their stories can be magnified that much greater and can be that much louder because they have that many more interactions. And I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying when you have, tenfold the interactions, there's a good chance there's going to be even some crazier stories within them. So at some point, yes, we'd love to get Callie, and maybe she's got some of those stories to share, some of the successes, the things she's learned, and like you said, how she'll progress and move forward in 2024. I can only imagine the undertaking that this year was, and then what she has lined up. So,
and real quick, we're going to talk about another A tier that happened because we're an all Masters podcast now. We're going to talk about the Bud Hill Masters event, which is a really, really big. This in general was the premier Masters event for many years. Now there's going to be some back and forth between this and the MT. I'm sure they'll work it all out. Jimmy Martinez wins this by 4 strokes over Stevie Rico. Mm-hmm. Third place was Dutch Napier. Fourth place, Matt Dollar. Moving on to FP40, Jenny Umstead wins this over Sandy Gast. MP50, Patrick Brown taking down Damon Pugh, Jay Yeti Redding, Eric Eastwood, Vinnie Miller, and then finally in FP50, Juliana Korver wins over Des Redding. It was a tie, but obviously Juliana wins because she's on top with the number 1, and her prize money's worth more than Des.
So getting
revenge. I would say getting a little revenge from was it Worlds?
No, it was the U.S.
Oh,
Women's.
U.S. Women's. Thank you.
U.S.
The other
Women's
major.
is when we saw those two go head-to-head, and Des got the upper hand on Juliana, and Juliana getting
Not
it
this
back
time.
here. And also the as you mentioned, Jenny and Patrick both winning. So congrats to them, as it's been a few months now that they've been engaged, but you have the engaged couple taking down both of their respective divisions this weekend. So
Which brings us
congrats
to
to
the next
them.
event. Honestly, that's
yes, all engagement all the time.
No.
Oh.
Gatekeeper Media presents the Down East Players Cup.
Who are they getting married to?
They're not getting. I don't believe Gatekeeper's getting married to anybody, but a married couple won this event.
What?
That's right. In
Ugh.
MPO, Grady Shue wins by a stroke. In FPO, Paige Shue, who he's married to, surprisingly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they got the last.
And you
last
know
name.
what's even crazier? In 4 minutes in their time zone, it's their damn anniversary.
Wow.
I think I just pulled that one out. I'm pretty sure it is.
Terry Miller. So anyways,
I'd bet on it.
So wow. So Grady beats Blake Polland, Gavin Rathbun, Tall Paul Oman, and Paige Shue wins over Holly Finley, Megan Goldsby, Arana Shakova. I'm gonna go with that. So congratulations to the wonderful married couple, and Schwebe got an MP40 win. So rack up put another notch there. He just keeps going.
Yet again,
and going.
Schwebe's married to winning. Well, and Ashley, who celebrated her birthday last week, but
Yeah.
Schwebe's also married to winning. That's what that guy does.
Ashley's better than winning, though.
It's like winning every
True.
day, Ashley.
Uh,
And yes, the Shoes celebrate an anniversary on the 25th, October 25th.
so tomorrow.
Tomorrow, and that's why I was saying in a few minutes, it'll be within their time zone. It'll technically be their anniversary, along with the Dosses. So congratulations, Nate and Val. They'll be celebrating their 9-year anniversary tomorrow. Grady and Paige celebrating 4 years.
So congratulations to the Shoes.
For everyone that was looking for some
Yeah, everyone's looking for that anniversary.
anniversary update, I've got you. Some of these are definitely ingrained. All right.
Those are
Yeah, that's what we saw for some our biggest action taking place around the country, and then overseas in another country, Spain, I believe.
Oh yeah, we have the Euro Tour event.
The championship, right?
Yeah, the PDGA Euro Tour champion in Andalusia. I think I pronounced that right.
I think you nailed it.
Getting his first big win, really, was Silver Lot. And he bested Elias by 3 strokes. It doesn't have how much they won here, but I believe this is one of Silver's biggest
I think it was
wins.
5,000.
Was it 5,000?
I don't know if the 5,000 euros or dollars either way.
It's close, though.
They're relatively, yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere that it was $5,000 and was his largest payout of his career. And then he's had a few wins, but this was definitely, I think, one of the largest, most significant wins. And by few, he's had 47, actually, as I'm looking at his chart right now, about 40 of those being an open, 42 of those being an open. And, of course, payout structure very different in Europe in general. So there is some of that factoring in. But, yeah, you're looking at his largest payout ever. And at I think like I said, I think I heard $5,000. So,
and this is his first ever A tier win, Silvers.
Yeah,
he's got a bunch of B tier, a couple B tiers, a bunch of C tiers, and as we know, like the field sizes tend to be smaller. There are less A tiers overseas than they have opportunity for here. So congratulations to Silver. Over on the FPO side, Silva Saarinen wins this one handily, talking 17 strokes here, over Jenny Karppinen. So congratulations to Silva on one of her bigger wins as well, although I believe, I'm going to look at her career wins right now.
Yeah, she's done all right.
She's got a couple A tiers under her belt from the elite tier.
She won almost every
Euro
event
tour this year. So
on the Euro Tour.
This is the finale.
Yep.
So obviously it's, maybe holds a little bit more weight. But other than that, she's got a bunch of A tiers under her belt already. So congratulations to Silva.
Yeah, Silva and Silver both taking down the win. Pretty cool to think about it. And then there was, in fact, a moment when you and I were out playing, and it was something that we both noticed on our own. Just the if you follow Kristen on Instagram, she had posted in a story basically what looked like she was on a chair or a blanket or in a chair, maybe in bed or in a chair, relaxing. She had a blanket and I think a warm cup of coffee or something of that nature, saying how she was excited to be watching Silver, her fiance, competing over in Spain. And it feels like, so it's like such a, for lack of a better phrase, like such a boss move. Like she's just chilling, relaxing. She's got the highest season earnings of any competitor of all time. She's officially taking her break and starting her off season in that competitive sense. And
her fiance has to continue working.
Her fiance is out there, and also coincidentally earning his biggest paycheck and earning, one of the biggest win really of his life. It just there was something that you just it feels. What's the word?
It's Kristen's world. We're living in it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it.
And as
it's
we know,
awesome.
It's great for her.
I love it.
She gets to take. I mean, she busted her ass all year long. And this is a good time for her just to decompress and probably not think about golf for quite a few weeks. For her own golf, I'll say. She can still think about Silver's golf, but that's a little less stressful than your own. So hopefully she takes a nice couple-week break, then gets, starts warming up and doing whatever she's going to do, whether it's practicing putting or forehands or whatever she needs to do to get ready to fill her well, as Ricky said last week.
Her mental well.
Her mental well.
I think I saw that there was maybe even, I think her and Silver, some of the off-season stuff they're doing is going to be, they run their Disc Golf Academy where they do lessons and things of that nature. And I believe that there's one scheduled in a few weeks that they're going to be doing. So that's some of the stuff they'll be doing in their off-season in Estonia is, running clinics and, possibly even unsanctioned tournaments or minor competitions along with doing some of the training and whatnot. So there's going to be rest, but that clearly they're both hard workers as it is. Exactly. So best of luck. Congrats again to Silver. You love it.
Not a lot of other PDGA news or announcements this week. It was pretty quiet. I think we're going to start to kind of go into I'd love to say our slow season, and it might be slow, I would say, for the next 2 weeks or so before we really start hearing rumblings of players changing manufacturers and the silly season starts, hot stove season, whatever you want to call it. We've got players that are coming up on the end of their contracts.
Yeah,
I believe Discraft has quite a few of their FPO coming up on contract. I think I saw Paige Pierce's contract is over. We talked to Holland Hanley a few weeks ago. Hers is. Missy Gannon as well, and maybe Valerie Mondahano as well.
She might have been a 1-year signing.
She might. I can't remember if she's 1 or 2 years. But we'd have to look, but I'm not going to dig into that too much. We know Gannon Burr's contract is up at the end of this year. Says the courts and everybody else apparently. So we'll see. There's a lot of rumors right now out there because I see Gannon offloading Prodigy discs. But I will say this.
He's also loading up on Legos.
That's true. He does. He's
got to support his Lego.
He's got to support his Lego habit. He's done this almost every offseason as well. He tends to gather discs and then unload them in the offseason. I'm not reading too much into these particular posts of him selling some of his plastic. Some of his stuff is bag worn type of discs. They were in his bag, but other stuff is just stock stuff that he's accumulated over the last year or two or whatever. So I wouldn't read too much into that. Yeah.
Obviously there was a lot of conversation, and then there was even the court proceedings and everything that took place. I would say just at face value, or just from a wider perspective, even though he finished out the year, had obviously a very solid year, even though everything kind of settled in, one has to think there either is residual or lingering feelings. You would have to think there has to, you literally had two people
there
go to court. go to court over something, and I'm not saying like burying the hatchet and just moving on. And
I don't think they ever had to go to court, but
well,
they did. But they did file
the court proceedings unfolded. Yeah. So you would have to think. And now you would love for everyone to say, "Oh well, kumbaya," and you know maybe every transgression was forgiven and or misgiving or misunderstanding. You would love to think that, and I'm saying that's absolutely 100% possible. I think it's less likely.
I agree
that both parties are 100% like, yes, we are 100% ready to move forward. Now, both parties may say, I'm 80% ready, and the other one says, I'm 80%. Status quo, let's just keep things going, and that's good enough. Maybe 80% is good enough on both of their opinions. Who knows? One may be 90% ready to go, and the other one's 10% ready. Either way, you would have to feel like there was some tear in that relationship. It's just a question is it or will it be mended enough to continue or restart a new contract?
Well,
I have a hard time believing it.
There's two things that will mend that: Legos and money. Now, maybe he can get a big Lego bonus, but my guess is if Prodigy comes back with the best offer by a certain amount, I'm guessing that kind of maybe that puts a lot of those feelings in the past.
It might.
And now obviously
we all know that money doesn't solve all those problems, though. Like
it solves a lot of them.
Depends on what that money difference is, right?
Correct.
Right? Like
yes.
If somebody, I'm just going to make up some numbers for fun. If somebody comes to him and says, "Hey, we're going to give you $500,000 for a year, or $500,000 a year," I'm just going to make up a number, and then somebody else says, well, let's just say Prodigy says that, and then somebody else comes along and says, "You know what? We're capping it out at $495,000. That's the most we're going to offer you." Again, that money may not be enough to make a difference to sway. You know, just because there's more money doesn't mean he's going to necessarily go that way. And again, I'm just making up some random numbers, but to be determined, right? But it's fair to say, I think we all know that those conversations are being had, and it's just a matter of it's a matter of how many parties. Because when a lot of people, I think, said, "Okay, well, just stick it out." He sticks it out and finishes out his contract.
Legally, probably had to.
Yeah, he does all that. Yeah, exactly. But now is his worth even greater because he did go on and prove to the world that he had another great season. Like his great season a year ago was great. The question was, well, will it follow up? Was this a one-time thing? Well, then he went on to have another great season. But is he that much more valuable once he hits the market?
Maybe, but we also know that the market is down.
We do.
So that could, the money that was possibly there for him last year or earlier this year when he tried to get out of his contract may not still be there.
Mm-hmm.
So
most certainly,
it just based on the market, and
now
it has nothing to do with his year, his skill level, or whatnot. It's a lot of what is going on in the industry. I don't know if we're going to see those big, record-breaking deals anymore. I think maybe the Ricky and the Paul deals are very unique, and we might see a lot of things come back down. Maybe be more bonus structured. Maybe be more, as we saw. From Prodigy, Isaac got his own disc line. Gannon did not, but Isaac also has 2 major victories under his belt. And so that, I've said it here 1,000 times, one of the best ways to lock a player into your manufacturer is to give them a disc line, their own disc line, because that is a way that you can get, hopefully, a larger percentage of the sales, the numbers. Like, look at Kevin Jones, look at Cale LaVisca with his disc line, Isaac Robinson now, Simon Lizotte, Paul Macbeth, Ricky Wysocki. These people all have their own discs.
Well,
or have a disc line coming out. So I think if you want to lock a player in, that's what you do. And maybe because we didn't see Gannon get his own, maybe that's foretelling the future. Maybe it's not. Maybe they both sides just said, "Hey, let's get through this offseason. We'll shuffle things around. We'll see what's going on."
And that could be a bargaining chip for next year.
That could be a bargaining chip for next year.
Yeah, so, and just real quick, I know these will get talked about, but just quickly perusing I'm going to throw out a few names that you see that contracts and say they're ending. I'm stealing right from Ultra World's website. Paige Pierce, as you mentioned, Garrett Gerthy, Vino Macula.
Garrett's not going anywhere.
Eagle McMahon.
Paige Pierce probably isn't going anywhere.
I'm just scrolling up.
I know. I'm just rattling them off.
Brad Schick, Juliana Korver, Sarah Holcomb.
Korver's not going anywhere.
Wow. Matt Oram, Laurie Lettinen, Missy Gannon.
Missy's, I don't think, is going
Kale
anywhere.
LaVisca.
Kale, probably not.
Vanessa Van Dyken, Andrew Rich, Andrew Presnell, Emerson Keith, Macy Veladiaz, Alden Harris, Chris Clemens, Deanne Carey, AJ Carey, Chandler Kramer, all listed as ending in 2023, Emily Beach, Stacy Ronsley, Holly Finley, Bradley Williams, Jessica Weiss, Nathan Queen, Philo Brathwaite, Haley King, Maria Oliva, Alexis Mundahano, Evan Smith, Eric Oakley, James Proctor, Scott Withers, Erica Stinchcomb, Robert Burridge, Lisa Fakis, James Proctor. Didn't we already say?
So
we said
it's a
once.
lot of the Lone Star people because they signed 1 year.
It is. Katrina Allen, Gavin Babcock, Chandler Fry, Rebecca Cox, Aaron Gossage, Holland Hanley, Valerie Mundahano, Austin Hannum.
I'm going to fall asleep here.
Jacob, Madison Walker, or Jacob Hebenheimer, sorry. Zach Melton, Jake Mon, Paige Shue, Austin Turner. Austin has his cast off. Dustin Keegan, Connor O'Reilly, Tristan Tanner, and Gavin Rathbun. Like,
it's a lot of people.
It is. And again, there's plenty of speculation, and there's a lot of things we all think we know and assume, and you said it perfectly a minute ago.
Proctor and Oakley both re-signed.
Okay, so they're going to have to start their 2024 active tracker so we can steal from their research or their documenting. Yeah, it's a lot of names, and the market is very different today than it was a year ago or 3 years ago, most certainly. I
was thinking, of all the people, to me, the most interesting one on there is Bradley Williams.
Okay.
Bradley coming off of second place at USCGC.
Sure.
Not on the star team currently.
Mm-hmm.
I foresee one of two things happening with Bradley. Either he gets bumped up to the star team, which I think he rightfully should now. He's a Pro Tour winner, and now took second place at a major, or he leaves Innova. That's
hot take.
To me, if I'm looking at what should be right in the universe, it's one of those two things. Like, just Bradley has earned his, what to me feels
to you.
like. Correct. I'm not Innova. I don't make the rules.
Do you know what it
Not
needs
a
to be to be on the star team?
Not a clue.
Other than your feelings.
Yeah, not a clue. But I look at some of the other people on the star team. I think he is more deserving than them. And I'm not going to name any names.
I was going to say we should call him up.
Honestly, right now, if you want to look at what's
I don't
happening
even know who's on the star
right
team
now, Philo shouldn't. Bradley Williams is more deserving than Philo. Bradley Williams is more deserving than Nate Sexton right now. And I don't think Nate Sexton would argue with that. Nate is starting to move into a different position in life. Bradley Williams is a better player than Nate Sexton at this moment. You know, Nate.
We know you're not also on a team just out of
correct
playing.
Agreed. Philo, it could be on that team because of media reasons. Nate could be on for the same reason. Like there are other reasons. Jeremy Colling, same reason. He could be on there for media and playing. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is that I feel, again, this is just a gut feeling. Bradley Williams should be on somebody's top team. And if he wants to stay with Innova, I feel like he should be on the star team. That's just based on his play.
Well, he is not currently there, as you said.
I know.
To name a few of the others, like you said, Philo, Jennifer Allen, Barsby, Bloomrose, Joel Freeman, Double G, Haley King, Coling, Murch, Korver, Heimberg, Solonen, Sexton, and Scoggins. Those are the other competitors currently listed as of today, 10/24, on the Innova Star team.
Yeah, Philo did win just now, this year, won a Masters major. But those majors tend to be weighted less.
For sure.
For other things. And he was on the star team before he won a major. Bradley Williams last year won a Pro Tour event. He won the Preserve last year.
Okay. So
it just, again, gut feeling. I don't know what the agreements are with Innova. I don't know any of the contracts. I just look at that and say, you know, from a real, eyeball perspective, it really feels like Bradley Williams has earned his way onto a top team. So, and I can't imagine a scenario where Bradley Williams says, "Nah, I'm happy where I'm at. I don't want to be on the top team. It's too much pressure. That extra Tour Series disc, just no, thank you."
I mean, yeah. Okay.
So
another name that jumps out at me is, and it's probably because of the news that surrounds him, is Eagle McMahon, who is listed as having his contract end this year, but then also just drops the big bomb that he's having a surgery. In fact, I think that's, did he say it? It might be tomorrow.
It's coming up.
Whenever it is, best of luck to you, of course, Eagle.
Yeah, he was on the board last week.
I want to say the 25th.
25th or 26th. I don't remember.
Something like that. So either way, and look at it from another perspective. Eagle had a solid year this year while being injured. And so there's this, for lack of a better phrase, flip of a coin as to if this makes Eagle a better player and he comes back with a longer, stronger sidearm as one of the main advantages to having the surgery, or if he stays the same, or if he worsens. Obviously, those are all things that could happen as a result of the surgery. Does that help or hinder any potential bargaining power that he has, whether it's with Discmania or any other brand that might be in pursuit of him?
I feel like it doesn't necessarily hurt him with Discmania.
Okay. Does it hurt him with others?
But I feel like it could hurt him with others. And I think any manufacturer that goes into this agreement this year should have, in whatever contract they sign, needs to have clear, either you wait until after the surgery and see how things are going, because the Eagles probably signed through the end of the year. So if he's having a surgery now, that presumes he's got 1 month of recovery time where you can then at that point, but it's not like these people are waiting until January 1st to talk contracts. They're already, I guarantee you, Eagle has been in contract talks for months now with Discmania. Whether it's off and on, whether it's casual, there has been discussions. I would bet money on that. Now, other manufacturers might take a wait and see approach. Like, well,
yeah, the question is, when will they see?
Yeah, that's a good question. But it might be too late.
Exactly.
It might be too late. So it's one of those things where, what if, heaven forbid, Eagle's surgery doesn't go ideal? What if the recovery time is longer than we expect?
And who's going to know? That's, I think, the other big factor, like you said, about being too late. Like, you're not necessarily going to know. Eagle might be on a path thinking, hey, I'm going to be ready to go by, we'll just say, All-Star Weekend. And then does the rest of the world
Valerie
know.
Mondahano, who said that she was ready. She wanted to be ready to go by Vegas and didn't come back until DDO.
Yeah. So, I mean, and understandably so, we're not passing any judgment on those decisions.
Of course not. But. And I think you have to, as a manufacturer, go into this negotiation with Eagle with that in mind. You say, okay, cool. We're if we sign you for 3 years, $1 million.
20 million.
20 million.
Yeah,
nice.
Sure.
Wow, you rolling in it, Miller.
Yeah. I'll give away somebody else's
3
money.
years, $20 million. Maybe there's some sort of stipulation that says if you can't play for X amount of time, maybe that gets taken out of your salary.
Sure.
Maybe there could be some
contingency
based on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Eagle McMahon and a lot of the other players, if you are I think it's just media that's allowed to vote. I believe there's going to be a fan portion as well, but the DGPT sent out emails for the player of the year, rookie of the year, things of that nature. There's a special weighting on the fan vote, I think, versus the media vote versus the other player vote. That's all, that's all out there. So
yeah, I had received.
I already filled mine out.
I was going to say we should do it live on the air if you want to pull up my screen. Just kidding.
I can't pull up your screen, but you could read it and we could do it live on the air. Come on, Terry.
Nope.
Terry,
I don't want to succump to the pressure.
Oh,
like, gosh. What's your first name? Like, I'm already like, stop. I've had a busy year. Okay, I need a break. But yes, as Johnny's saying, the end of the season award voting, the ballots are due November 5th. At least that's the note that was sent to me. And there is a final note here that says, please note that the votes are public. Not turning in the ballot on time or voting in a way that is not reflective of the season, for example, voting for a friend or a sponsor aligned with a player as a player of the year, are grounds for losing the right to a ballot in future years.
So if you vote for me for player of the year, you're going to get your ballot taken away next year, Terry.
They just don't see your play like I do.
I know.
They shouldn't be punished.
Listen, you and I played this weekend, and both of us, I would say, played relatively well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll write your name in. Let's see what happens.
I think you should.
So we'll see how that goes. And that does make sense, of course, that you're not ballot stuffing under some silly circumstance. If you want to have a debate about a Calvin or Eagle or Gannon for player of the year, that's one thing. Or
I think the first question literally asks, or literally you have to check that you have not been influenced or paid for your vote. So a player cannot pay you to get a vote.
Define pay.
I mean, is like a shoulder rub paying? Like if Calvin came up behind me and it's like, John, and just kind of rub my shoulders a little bit.
I mean,
for that player of the year?
Jim Oates did rub my shoulders pretty good this year, so he might get a little nod.
You should probably vote for him.
Yeah, I don't know. Might be a perfect phone call out there for me to have. I don't know. We should see.
Yeah,
so anyway, that is happening in some capacity. Wow, I think that's about it for other major news or info. On a super quick, semi-personal, personal note. Tomorrow, I have the pleasure of going to the Wisconsin FIED show, Wisconsin Physical Education show. It's actually Wisconsin Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. WAPRD.
That's a mouthful.
It is, and I think they go by WAPRD. Otherwise sometimes known as AFERDS when they're the American Association for Physical Education, Recreation, Health, and Dance, blah, blah, blah. It's often where you see you play, and very much people, anyone trying to promote disc golf into schools and whatnot. I've been going to the show for 20 some years. At one point, I think I was partially teamed up with Edge, and many of the other times. Our organization that helps put it together in Wisconsin is called the Wisconsin Disc Sports Association, and largely the premise of being there is to introduce disc golf and disc sports. So if somebody does have a question about Ultimate, we've got keys and guides and resources that we can point them to. Clearly, I'm not giving an Ultimate lesson, but we can find the right people, and there's plenty of other Ultimate enthusiasts that we also can connect them with. Disc golf has been the main one that we've pushed, but even this almost feels like we've run our course. And this is similar to going to the Wisconsin Park and Recreation show, which you often see a lot of our manufacturers at a national or international level. I rewind 20 years ago, almost exactly 20 years ago. I think I went to one of my first shows, and teachers were like, "That like a bird feeder, a deer feeder? Like what is this basket contraption thing?" Thinking like I made up some crazy new sport, because there's a lot of crazy sports that get made up, that get introduced at these shows, where people are often just kind of, well, here's this mixed with this sport, and I've created a new one. There's a lot of, innovators in that way, or mix mashers. And I think that's very much what they assumed I was doing with disc golf. Like, you throw a Frisbee into this thing that catches it. We call it disc golf. And now we're to a point where the FIED teachers often come up, "Oh, hey, we do this. Oh, hey, I bought 9 holes. Oh, hey, we go to the course down the road. We've got 100 Frisbees for our students, and we're already doing this, or we're already using Edge or Uplay." Our time is limited in terms of our usefulness, in terms of being a full-blown resource, because disc golf has gotten so big in these 20 years. But nonetheless, it's great to connect with these teachers and to see teachers that literally did jump on board 15 years ago and ordered 100 discs, and they've been teaching disc golf ever since, is pretty exciting. And I hear their stories, and maybe they used to go to the course on the other side of town with a bus trip or a field trip, and now they got their own school to invest in 9 holes, or they've bought 6 portable holes. all of those types of stories have come as a result of being at this particular show. And so I'm super glad to be at it again tomorrow. And then right from there, off to Vegas. So that's what you're going to see. We were kind of referenced it earlier. The Halloween Classic presented by Legacy is taking place this weekend, and I will be bringing you post-production coverage. It won't be next day. If you think I'm doing next day coverage in Vegas, you're wrong.
What else is there to do there, Terry?
It won't be next day, but we'll get it out as soon as we can. And I am very excited to be out there and be part of the event. So thank you to Sam and the club and everyone else that has any part of it. But and thank you to Legacy, who is your presenting sponsor of the tournament. So that's what's going to be going on. Are any of you going to be in Vegas this weekend in the chat? Let me know. Maybe you could help me edit if that's. That'll
help Terry gamble.
No, I don't need any help doing that. I'll do very little of that, if any. Do we want to go into an after show? Do we want to roll this in and keep it all together? What are you thinking here, Johnny?
No, we'll break it up and do a little after show quick.
All right. Well, then with that, I think that's all of our serious business before we get to the after show. That's all of our serious business for the night. Thank you, Doeke, along with Matt, both of you guys, for joining us over at UDisc. We wish them nothing but the best of luck, and congrats to all the people who played well or have anniversaries and birthdays and everything else that I called off. For Johnny V, I'm the Disc Golf Guy. That's 477. Does that sound right?
That does sound
477. Right. We're going to take a quick break, and in the after show, we're going to have a giveaway, talk about a few other subjects. So we'll see you then when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the SmashBoxxTV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 477's After Show. Well, he's trying to keep up with us. Ryan Schweberger picks up another win this weekend. We're at 477, and he moves to 384.
Yeah.
Another win for Schwebby.
He's got us by 7.
Another win.
It's harder for us to catch up if he keeps playing. We only do
Dude,
one.
we're going to have extra shows.
That's right.
Every weekend he wins, we're going to have an extra show just to make sure we stay that much more ahead of him. But
Can we make more Tuesdays?
Yes, that sounds like a good idea. Making the most of it as I'm on the PDGA page. Saw Alden Harris along with Isaac Robinson taking a little trip to Spain.
I did see that.
Looks like fun, along with Sapu Payu taking in a little action over there in Spain, mentioning their first time being there. Pretty cool.
Well, considering I think this year was their first time overseas at the European Open, that, yes, it would make sense that this was their first time to Spain.
Yeah,
too.
but it's a fair question to also follow up with and say, like, why? Is this continued Prodigy negotiations?
I'm assuming it ties into to Prodigy with Seppo and probably the Prodigy tour and everything that's going on over there.
I hope they have a good time. I don't have quite the right meme for it, and I probably won't get around to making it. And it's splitting hairs, maybe getting a little bit almost petty. But I guess that's the whole point of a meme, right? There is a lot of players who post and or have claimed, like Ricky last week. Excited for the offseason. Can't wait for the offseason. Give my body a break. All these things. Refill the mental well. Take some time off. Also, a lot of our top players, here I am playing another course. And I get it. It's casual. It's a totally different vibe. I'm not suggesting our players don't go out and play disc golf in the offseason. I'm not suggesting anything of the sort.
That's exactly what you're suggesting.
And I just found it funny because I feel like so many of our players rightfully have been saying, hey, I'm tired. I'm beat down. I'm ready to be done. And then I think of seeing Alden and Isaac in Spain, which is awesome cultural experience. It's not just about the disc golf, of course, but playing in Spain. I saw Adam Hammis posting today out there on a course playing. There was one or two of our other top pros that I saw out there playing in like a casual round. I get it. Casual is not the same, and they're not practicing for a tournament. It's just funny when you hear so many of them say, like, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I'm ready to curl up with a blanket and a coffee like Kristen.
Kristen's got it
and
right.
She's doing it right. And others are like, I'm out here getting some golf in. Thought it was kind of funny. What else have we seen on the internets? If you have any other topics or questions or conversation pieces, please make sure you go ahead and put them into the YouTube chats. We can try and directly react or answer those. As Johnny does a quick search, I want to say a couple of things. One, I saw a release this morning as a Prodigy dealer. I saw a release this morning that Prodigy has aligned with or has gotten licensing rights to eventually all of the NHL teams. So you're going to see some NHL co-branded or branded NHL related discs and stuff that they're working on.
Who has that?
Prodigy.
Cool.
So if you're an NHL guy, which neither Johnny nor I are, very cool. I saw Gavin Babcock specifically say this is awesome. So obviously any NHL fans out there, if you love the crossover, the tie-in, kind of cool. We haven't seen that done. I mean, earlier this year, we saw Discmania get official licensing, unlike most of the illegals, get official licensing with the Grateful Dead earlier this year. We've seen, of course, Discraft do it with Star Wars and Disney and whatever.
DD had the
Marvel.
Yep.
So we've seen things of this nature, but I think this is one of, I have no idea what the pricing of that looks like or what any of that entails, any other details or obligations, but nonetheless, it crossed my desk or my inbox this morning. I was just going to see if I had it in front of me, but yeah, something that's going to be available. So if you love that crossover, it is the NHL collection. They announced a multi-year licensing agreement with the NHL to become the first disc golf partner of the NHL. Prodigy will produce branded discs featuring the league and all 32 team marks in Canada and the U.S.
So if you're a huge Avalanche fan, so to speak, you could probably get a disc with Avalanche. So
thought that was pretty cool. Certainly of note for anyone out there. And I completely, speaking of avalanches and mountains, one of our Smashies who was out there on the board, Mike Jewell, reached out to me today, and I saw he also chatted on here tonight, is doing the Pacific Coast Trail, PCT, which you nor I knew anything about until I Googled it. Essentially, it looks like you start just above the northern border of Washington, you're in Canada, and you pretty much walk all the way down to Mexico.
That's a long walk. A couple weeks?
No. 5.5 months is like average. 2,600 miles, roughly.
I was thinking 6 to 8 weeks, but no, wow.
Yeah, 5.5 months, I think I read, is the average. And now I'm an expert because I searched around on the website for 10 minutes. But you have to apply for a permit and some passes and da-da-da-da. And there's obviously good times a year, bad times a year, all that other stuff. But Mike Jewell, who has done some commentary with me, he runs a YouTube channel and does some coverage and such. I saw him having a rummage sale a week ago. I don't know, anybody can have a rummage sale for any given reason.
Thanks for giving your permission.
But I'm just saying, and I didn't think that much of it. And now I'm putting a few more things together of, hey, he's really trying to liquidate probably, because I don't think he's taken that half-used or that half put together Monopoly with him on his journey across the Western Coast. So, Mike, whenever you go, which I think you said would be a few months yet, best of luck to you.
Best of luck. You were talking about NHL. We can talk a little bit about MLB as well, just as a reference. Diamondbacks. We got a lot of players. Ricky was at the Diamondbacks game yesterday, I believe.
Okay.
Or was it 2 days ago? I
don't know.
I think it was on Saturday as he was there, because he watched the loss, unfortunately. But Diamondbacks end up winning the final 2 games to get into the World Series, where they're going to be playing the Texans.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, that's
so our World Series.
Texans. Texas Rangers. I was thinking football. How old am I?
Woo!
Yeah, the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, they've been the Rangers for a little while.
They've been, for a long time. Like a long, long time, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Like since we were kids.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because when you think of the Texas Rangers, who do you put in your head?
There's only one.
Nolan, right?
Yeah, Nolan Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah. There's only I couldn't name another one.
I don't think I could either.
Hernandez? No, Keith Hernandez didn't play for them. I know he was on the Mets forever, but who am I thinking of? The catcher, Mike, what's his name that ended up going to the Yankees
Mike Piazza?
Yeah, was he on the Texas Rangers at one point? That's a random pull. If I'm right on that, that would be one hell of a pull.
Might have been.
No.
Ivan Rodriguez.
That's who I might have been thinking of.
Adrian Beltre. A-Rod was a shortstop for them for a while.
Yeah, for a while or for just once?
Like
for a minute?
Might have been just for a hot minute.
Yeah.
He was also an Appleton Fox.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Okay.
He was the most famous guy to come out of the Foxes for a while.
No, I might have been thinking of
Rafael Palmeiro.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Who, to be fair, not too far different from era-wise and whatnot from like a Keith Hernandez, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was getting.
Julio Franco would be right up our alley.
Oh yeah, I've got his rookie cards.
So do I.
Yeah, that's true. Huh. Again, for anyone screaming at either their podcast or the video, Johnny nor I had hardly any tie to Texas Rangers or Ranger history, Ranger anything being in Wisconsin. Just there's so many other teams that I feel like there's like an indirect tie to. Texas Rangers, like never.
Nope.
Like in any capacity. Like if I don't have a story tying to them, like albeit obscure, then they definitely are not at the forefront of much that we were thinking about.
Yeah, the Rangers ended up beating the Astros. So it was all Texas.
I think they're from Texas too.
They are. If you count Houston as part of Texas.
I don't know what fight you're trying to drum up there, but you're going to.
I don't either. So, but yeah, so we got a bunch of probably happy disc golfers because we got a large contingent of
course,
disc golfers. And AB actually has his jersey that's very much modeled after the Diamondbacks.
Okay.
I'm sure AB will probably be trying to score himself a World Series ticket.
Okay. I like it. Let's read. Dondo says, Texas Ranger, such an amazing disc. Love the Lone Star plastic. For me, it's the consistency.
It's just the consistency of the consistency.
Yeah.
Like, they're always consistent. It's the consistency of the
Speaking of which, and we kind of glossed over this earlier, one of the early and only off-season things we've already seen transpire, none other than Carter Aarons going to Lone Star. So
yeah, he announced a couple weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago, that he was leaving DD, and then there was no word on where he was going, and it was just announced yesterday or the day before, or maybe it was late
a couple
last
days
week.
ago,
Yeah,
at least. Yeah,
that he's going to Lone Star. So I hope. Now he's still relatively young. I think he's still under 18.
Yeah.
So I don't know what his touring life is going to be, unless he can maybe do similar to maybe what Gannon did, do some remote school, and who knows. But I think it's a good grab from Lone Star. He's a very young and up-and-coming kid. He's already proven that he can play with the best of them. It's a consistency factor now.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you want to go somewhere, you go to Lone Star for consistency. It says so in their commercials. Yeah, so Carter Aaron's going to Lone Star. I mean, not much to say. We'll see what his touring life looks like. This could be a big nothing burger for a year or two. But
yeah, I mean, it's all predicated on how much he competes and plays,
exactly.
Right? That's what you're saying. I agree. If we see him out there playing in 25 events, obviously
then
it's a lot more impactful than if he stays largely regional and local to the Pacific Northwest. Although he could be a superstar there, it will be less impactful versus seeing him at more and more events. All right. Yeah, threw a penny putter 400. I don't care what the putter is. He could throw a stack of pennies, or he could throw a whole roll of pennies or quarters 400 feet probably.
That kid
if it was
far.
if it was taped to the top of a disc. I'm not sure that it really matters the disc whatsoever. And specifically, that's one thing that I think he's really leaned into that he loves is throwing putters a mile. Like he likes to throw big drives, but like specifically being able to throw a putter a mile is a pretty
It's a fun skill.
Yeah, not that we would know, but it could be fun.
I think I got a putter over 300 once. Not in the last decade, it feels like.
Downhill.
Well, with a tailwind.
And your Bushnell might have been off.
I didn't have Bushnell back then. Are you kidding me? That's not how I rolled. I paced that thing off.
Yeah, you did.
Every step was
My
5
steps
feet.
are yours. Yeah.
Every step was 5 feet.
All right. What else do we have on the board? I'm going to try and see if there's anything else. Okay, I'm sorry, reading some of the things off the board. If you guys have any other questions, you're welcome to throw it in.
Throw it in the chat, and we can kind of go from there. There hasn't, again, like we said, not a lot of news. I think we're going to see a couple quiet weeks before we really start to see announcements coming from players on where they're going. And some won't even announce till after the beginning of the year. I believe we're supposed to see an announcement about the European tour in the next couple days, maybe the next week. I think that now that the finale is over, the European tour, the ET finale, I have a feeling that that's going to probably roll out relatively soon. That could be a day, that could be a week, but I bet we're going to see something like that come from the PDGA and the Euro Tour, as well as maybe the DGPT.
Yeah, I think that's definitely some of the biggest news that is to come any day now.
Still waiting.
Is what we're going to see for other events and how they're going to react. We've seen us go in really hard on, PCS being a silver event, then last year being an elite event, and just events like that of growing and thriving. We saw, as the Euro Tour wrapped up just this last weekend, where there's a chance for growth and where there's going to be some consolidation. I mean, there's clearly some differing opinions as to how to go about promoting high-level European golf in the best possible ways, whether that's the extent of the tours themselves, the number of the tours, the collaboration among any given events, post-production, live production. Like, there are a lot of variables as we're all kind of testing the waters for those different events and those different scenarios. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I hope that Europe can get their act together, and if they continue to have the two separate tours, coordinate them better so that we see less overlap. That's kind of my hope, that the Euro Tour and the European Pro Tour find a way to collaborate so we have a more unified European tour. I don't know what the plan is, but
Got any UN treaties to sign or anything?
I don't believe they need any UN treaties.
Okay. Yeah, I agree, and that's what I think. It's a matter of like people still establishing themselves, but then finding their own way, but yet differentiating. And then when do you want to play nice and collaborate, and when are you like, no, I got this? Whether that's ego or schedule constraint. Like obviously, we always talk about what it means to have a schedule here. Clearly, when you're talking about a number of neighboring countries all trying to play nice, different organizations, different philosophies, there's so much that has to go into that. I don't envy their task at all. Matej and I think of Guru, I think of Brian Graham, I think of just all the people at play. I don't envy those headaches whatsoever.
I can't even imagine.
So hopefully, like you said, we'll see some announcements and some big things. I think I'm gonna have a big announcement sometime around next week too, unrelated. But that's the best tease you're going to get on that.
All right.
Hayes Dude writes, Terry, huge fan. Thank you. Did you agree with Brian Earhart's take on rangefinders on the Foundation podcast? He thinks they should only be allowed for practice rounds. I feel as if, short answer is yes. I could get on board with that. Longer answer is I think that worm is out of the can or the genie's out of the bottle and we're not putting it back in.
I disagree. I think something like this you could.
I just don't think it's going to be easy. And I'm not saying anyone's a cheater. However, with technology, it is so easy to give us that information now and to acquire it and to display it and to offer it, that if somebody wanted to circumvent or skirt around rules, it's easier. It would be easier than ever before. And our last guest just said it. He said, we're going to add distance to the pin on the watch so it just pops up. Whether it's a glance, whether it's a phone, whether it's intentional or not, it's just going to be, it's so easy for those things to happen. Would I be okay if it was, if it wasn't allowed or if it was abolished or banned or whatever? Absolutely. I mean, Johnny and I are of the time frame in which rangefinders, albeit not common or nearly as accessible as they are today, they were never allowed. They weren't allowed until just a few years ago. You explicitly could not use them on the course. And then they became legal. And that's, I just think with technology and what GPSing has done and what watches and phones and other random devices inclusive of updating rangefinders and making those easier and cheaper and more accessible. I think it's really tough. I'd be okay though if they were not allowed. I'd be totally good with it.
I would be okay with that if for whatever reason, but you also have to look at what type of impact is Bushnell having on the sport. If it was suddenly outlawed during rounds, does that hurt the sponsorship? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Who are we beholden to, right?
Yeah, exactly. But, and like you said, it's almost impossible to now basically
eliminate, eradicate,
regulate this, because like you said, if I'm sitting on my phone, you don't know if I'm playing Bejeweled, you don't know if I'm playing
Bedazzled
or
Bang Jangled.
Sure,
you love all those
things. Or if I have UDisc open, if I have a little map open, if I'm sitting on the tee, I threw that tree. If I look or I walk up, it's not, like you said, it's on your watch. You glance and it says, all right, 380 to the pin. Okay. You at this point, I feel like it's just too difficult with all the other technology that's out there. Would it be great if we had like these cool caddy books and you went out beforehand, your practice round, and you were lasering different trees so you knew where they were and you're writing them in a little caddy book or taking notes on your phone and your little notepad? Sure, all that would be wonderful. I have, other than the extra time it takes, I really don't have a problem with the rangefinders these days. And as Hayes Dude and Boogers both say that AirPods need to go as well. No, they don't. Everybody has the right to wear AirPods to avoid distractions. That's fine. And then Max says no sellies on the course. That's how we keep score. Literally, that's how you keep scoring
And,
now.
well, and,
PDGA Live and UDisc.
and that's
You
where I'm
need
thinking we
cellular.
go to, well, let's just play pretend as money, and we go to an extreme or not. Each group issued 2 dummy phones that give you cellular, but can only do the scoring apps. I'm just throwing it out there. This isn't that crazy.
It's not that
It's
crazy.
not likely, but it's also not crazy.
I think we're years away from that. But.
You show up to the course, and or now let's say all 4. You're issued 4 phones because we'll say Verizon is a sponsor. The group is issued 4 phones, and essentially it's locked down, like maybe either a kid phone or if you're going to a library, it's locked down, and basically all it can get you to is PDGA Live and UDisc. Those are the 2 things that you can access.
And so you can't bring your cell phone.
And you can't bring
on the
your
course?
cell phone. You can't bring your device.
I mean, if it went that way, I would have no problem with it. I don't think it's going to.
I don't either.
Like
but
I feel like you're just, it's, there's no. I don't see a reason for it. I know people are saying things like, it's unfair because it's a distraction. It helps distract you from distractions, or keep your mind off the game, and you should be able. Great. Does that mean I can't bring a Sudoku book with me and sit and do Sudoku to keep track of? Do I need to be focused literally on my golf the entire 18 holes? I can't think or do anything else. I believe it's a silly reason, and I'm not saying that those guys on our board are particularly saying it, but I know I've heard that cell phones are, they help you from distraction. It's not fair you're wearing earbuds when, because you can listen to music and block out noise. Cool. I could put earplugs in too. Do you eliminate those? How about headphones? Do we have what if we have a particular player who's on the spectrum that needs to wear them? Is that not right for them as well? I just feel like trying to eradicate all these things that avoid distraction is just pushing us the wrong direction.
Well, because you could, like you said, you can extrapolate that out to so many different things,
Yeah,
and whether that's Sudoku or just bringing a book to read, because you're going to be sitting on a backup on holes 9 and 12.
You can
and
only read the PDGA rulebook
magazine,
or magazine,
but not the digital version. You have to bring the actual hard copy with you. Like you said, or a crossword puzzle. I don't think or someone that says, well, like, I bring sunflower seeds. Those essentially are my distraction. I'm not bringing them for the nutrition. I'm bringing them for my nervous distraction, and that's why I eat and chew sunflower seeds. There's so many different ways. If you want to get really granular, you can really like extrapolate this out into so many other things. I don't know. Of course, anyone that's we definitely believe in the situation that anyone that is then missing shots or is being oblivious to their card or a disruption to their card as a result of their headphones, obviously that should be addressed and or stroked or penalized, all of those things. I don't think there's any debate about that. It's just a question of, should you be allowed to even get anywhere near that in the first place? I don't know, but yeah, if I have to say to you for the 13th time during the round, what's your score? Because you're listening to your earbuds too loudly. Yeah, at that point, it does, way by then, it has certainly warranted a warning and or a courtesy violation.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention to your opponent's throws, if you are off in La La Land, that is already addressed in the rule book. You have to watch your competitors' throws. You have to be able to, make rules callings and whatnot. But headphones, again, some people might consider it a competitive advantage. Others might not. Guess what? When I'm putting and that bass drops on my headphones just as I'm putting, that might be a distraction.
I mean, is it an advantage that I'm deaf in one ear?
Yes.
I mean, just to read it exactly as it says on the board, earbuds are definitely controversial if they're being used as a competitive advantage. Like, that entire phrase to me is just incredibly subjective, right? Like, if they're being used as a competitive advantage, what could that even mean? And what exactly is the competitive advantage? Because what could be the competitive advantage to one is a complete disadvantage to someone else. Like some people can't stand any noise or music. I don't want to hear somebody else's music.
Yeah, that would be
right.
a
So
courtesy
like
violation.
if
you can hear someone else's music.
I don't know. I understand and I know this debate, by the way, just so everyone knows, this debate has been around for at least as long as wireless earbuds, and I'm sure before that.
I remember playing Am Worlds in Minnesota with a gentleman who wore headphones, like he had a Walkman.
Yeah, I'm trying to
and I played with him. And he had his headphones on the whole time.
Dave Jewell in Madison had his headphones
Correct.
on all the time. This dates back 30 years ago. 25 years ago. He had just had a Walkman.
It's obviously much more
prevalent because of
wireless headphones, because a lot of people didn't like the wire. And I remember wearing wired headphones, and I'd run the wire through under my shirt.
Yeah,
so
plenty of people did.
So it wouldn't get in the way. But usually just, for casual rounds, I didn't usually use them, because most of the time if I'm at a tournament, I'm there so rarely anymore, I kind of want to sit and chat with people. And I do think it's funny, because I think if I played a lot of tournaments in a year, I could then feel like it would be more comfortable for me to wear headphones once in a while. But with as few tournaments as I play, I feel like it's almost rude to wear headphones when you're sitting around with a card. I don't because I like to sit at the hole, maybe write a backup, chat a little bit. That's fine. But also, I don't see a lot of these guys very often. Now, if I saw them every single weekend in and out, maybe I would want to wear headphones and not have to listen to Steve Held again.
I was just going to say, is it a competitive advantage when you're on a card and there's 3 people that are relatively silent and just don't talk a lot? And then we've all been on a card where someone doesn't shut the F up. They're just a very overly talkative person, and they mean no ill will. It's just them. How is it fair that first round I'm on a card with that guy who doesn't shut up, and you're on a card with 3 people who hardly speak, and make it a much more laid back, casual round? Like you just get into so many splitting of hairs, and you further split hairs. And I'm not picking on you, Hayes, dude, but you say noise canceling. All right. I mean, are we getting into some elitist conversation about, well, you have the $119 AirPods, and I can only afford the $48 knockoff brand. Mine don't have noise canceling. Like we're just really starting to split a lot of hairs.
Now,
in my opinion,
the one way I could see, and someone brings it up on the board, the reasoning for this would be safety.
Sure,
because you do need to warn. I mean, you should warn someone if you're throwing towards them. I don't believe it's anywhere in the book that you have to yell for if you have an errant shot. I don't believe there's anywhere in the rule book that says you need to warn someone. It's common courtesy for safety reasons. If you have an errant throw that you think is going to hit somebody, maybe you give a yell out, but I don't believe it's anywhere in the rules. But it is a safety issue. I could understand if that approach were taken. But also, if you're in a situation where your tee box might somehow get an errant drive, it's still on you to be paying attention.
No,
you can't be out there oblivious. I mean, we've seen plenty of people get hit by discs for years
that were paying attention.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, the debate will rage on. Those are 2 of the probably most discussed topics, I feel like, right now. Rangefinders and earbuds of some sort.
The last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I think of so many different ways that you get a similar result that may not be something physically in your ear, that may or may not then come across as fair. And I think of the talkative players. I get a lot of talkative players, when you're out there playing, and I think it sometimes can depend even on who's on your card, right? If you have a high profile player on your card, and then 2 or 3 other not so high profile players, a high-profile player probably has to sit and listen to a lot of other things that get said, right? Like a million questions get asked, things of that nature. There's a lot of different ways that I think you could look at it, and I'm not completely dismissing it, but I just think it's very complex. Is a good way to look at it. Darren says 1 earbud is good. Like I said, so I put the 1 earbud in my good ear, and my right ear is essentially deaf.
I'll be the first to stroke you, bro.
Yeah, you will. Anyway, Cap and Moist Beard, I'm not sure to what seriousness, but said Terry about to sweep the Special Olympics for being deaf in 1 year. No, but let me just, as a quick backstory, I'm good friends with a number of gentlemen who are part of the deaf, the Wisconsin that have either taught at or helped out at the Wisconsin School for the Deaf. In fact, I helped put baskets on their course. And the deaf disc golf community in the Midwest was thriving significantly, and really a growing group of guys that are incredible. I still know a lot of them to this day, around 2005 through 2010. Mm-hmm. And they very much encouraged and said, I'm eligible to compete in their deaf national championships. I say there because I didn't consider myself as part of that club or as part of that group because I have the majority of my hearing. And again, they could argue, we could all argue about what was what. I didn't feel comfortable as I would have been at the time in one of my peak areas of my career, of playing career, almost 1,000 rated, and then seeing largely what the competition was, just ratings wise, I felt like it would have, even if I was fully accepted and okayed, it didn't feel right going to compete in their deaf national championships. I would have been a favorite by a lot, and that's not the only reason. I don't, although I'll jokingly mention my lack of hearing in my right ear because it's not something I'm
what if you put in noise
mad or offended about it. But it's not something I really lean into in any other serious capacity, and I have garnered no other advantage from in any other capacity.
It's also why you can always notice why Terry's on the specific side during interviews.
Yes, I am always on what would be just like here, even though we're wearing headphones in this case, I'm always going to be on the
I don't even have
my right, and
my
as you're looking from a camera, I would be on the left, and that's 100% by intention.
Coffee on Korriban has a hypothetical.
Uh-oh.
A player's first rating after their first tournament is 984.
Okay.
Should he keep playing MA1 for his lack of experience, or move to MPO because of his rating?
I mean, was the 984, was that a typical day for them?
It's a little subjective.
It's 100% subjective for that reason.
I personally think, given this scenario, you stick playing with MA1 for a few events. If it's your first tournament, I think you should. I mean, did you win MA1? Because 984 isn't always winning MA1.
Not necessarily.
You know, we're seeing some maybe low 1,000 rated. I think you should probably stick with MA1 for a few events. And at that point, kind of take a look at your history. Do you feel like, oh, I'm always shooting 984? If you're always shooting 984, then maybe you might want to move up. Get a win. Learn how to win, because we've heard it from numerous pros that you could be a 984 pro, but when you get in the position where you're in first or second place and you're chasing, that's a totally different feeling. Making sure you understand all the rules, that you're playing all the etiquette. Get a couple events under your belt in amateur before you play open. That's my particular take on it. Even if, you know what, I don't care if you came out and shot 1,000 rated your first round, your first event. It don't matter. I think MA1 is the right position based on experience for at least 3-4 events.
Yeah, and I was going to follow that up and say, did you shoot a 986 and a 982? That's how your rating arrived at 984, kind of proving where that consistency came from? Or did you shoot 1,020 and then whatever you'd have to shoot to negate that? I don't know, 960? 940? What? I mean, you do the math.
No.
You know what I mean. How did you arrive at that? That may or may not. Again, one day, that's just too small of a sample size. In general, I feel like unless something was just wildly, you hit every possible putt and you played out of your mind, or you played absolutely terrible for 34 out of 36 holes, and that's how you arrived at those ratings. One day is just one little snapshot. I don't know that necessarily defines anything, but like Johnny said, it wouldn't be crazy for you to go play another event or two, maybe, to see if that's roughly where you level out at, and if you're comfortable with that. And then you have goals as to, I want to learn how to win. I want to learn how to play under pressure. Or have you been practicing so long, just not playing tournaments, and now you feel like you're ready for the big time?
Well, he said it was a typical day, and I did play more MA1, but my rating tanked to 956.
So you probably did the right thing.
By far the highest in the field.
Well, so you did the right thing.
Yeah, you did.
Is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I believe.
Because if you're down to 956, that tells me you're not MPO
material yet,
bound or caliber at the moment.
956 for local may get you some bottom caches in MPO. If
depending
you're
on your local field.
Yeah, depending on your local field.
So, MA1 is probably where you belong for at least a little while. That would be my suggestion. Now, you could counter, as everyone else does, and say, but I play better when I play with people that are better than me, which statistically isn't really often true.
No. But if
and if the best players in the world always did that, then they'd always just play worse. And statistically, that doesn't happen. But everybody says that. I play better when I'm around better players.
You could learn more. You can.
90-some% of golfers, I feel like, say that.
Sure. And it might be true.
I think stats would tell you otherwise.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think you have any stats to back your stats
I
up.
do, because I once brought this up with Chuck Kennedy because I was so sick of hearing people say that. And then I've always said, great. What does Ricky do when he's the highest rated guy on the card?
No one says it has to be the same way for every person.
But most golfers, that's my point, though, is almost all golfers. I'll go from most to almost all. So I play better when I play with better players.
So
how often have you heard that?
You don't think
a million times?
I know we've had this discussion. You don't think that Ricky has more of a competitive drive when he's playing with Paul and Simon versus when he's playing with you and me? If we played a tournament, you and I got into a pro tour event, it was you, me, Ricky, and Captain Moistbeard. You don't think that You're
questioning his skills?
I am, because I assume his name is Captain Moistbeard. You don't think that there is maybe a little more competitive drive in Ricky? Now, again, I've always said that's internal. That's on Ricky. If Ricky can't play his best game with 3 schlubs, then that's another thing. But that also is it mentally tougher for him to play when he's shooting 7, 8, 10 down, and we're all shooting 8 over? Is that tougher for him mentally to be able to sit and wait longer than he would if he were playing in a more flow-like state when he's playing with a Simon and a Double G and a Paul? 100%. It's not just the fact that, somebody on my card is better, so I'm playing better. There is an internal competitive drive for people. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, because I believe everybody, if you're a good or a top pro, you find something to do to make that drive for you. But not everyone is that way. So if I were to say, and I don't necessarily say this, that I play better when I play with better people, cool. That might be 100% true for me.
I agree that first of all, you have to find a way to whatever get your goat to get you fired up.
Yep.
To play better, good for you. And if that's playing with better people, playing with worse people, if that's internally...
Yeah, some people might say I play better with worse people because I feel more confident that I'm kicking their ass.
But my point is, 9 out of 10 players will say, I play better when I play with better people. And then let's just say every one of our pros says that. Let's just say they do.
Okay.
Or believe that. Then why do I see someone tank and shoot 12 strokes worse than the leader on the same card with them? Because you don't always do it, but everyone says that. That's I think the part that annoys me so much is that everyone says that and believes that, and the stats say otherwise. You don't always play better with that. That would indicate.
I don't think anyone says they always play better, but the word is I play better with better players. I don't think is necessarily the wrong thing to say. Now, if anytime you put a major extreme, I always or I never, it's. That is hyperbolic, and no one is truly. You should not hold anyone to that. Just like it's kind of the way people say, "I literally fell off my roof today." Like, no, you
probably
didn't,
really didn't.
No,
literally is a little different, but
I don't
when
think
you're
so.
talking about literal use.
Some people literally say literal all the time,
Oh,
Terry.
I know.
And it's not
don't
literal.
don't think that I don't notice it.
So I believe using the word always and never, it's the same as literal to me. You don't.
I will circle back with one Chuck Kennedy, who I had this discussion with a few years ago, where he essentially proved that that's not the case.
And that might.
And
I will
that's
say statistically, it might not be the case. You're right.
But the funny part is how many people believe it and utter it and say it.
I'm
and it's
sure
like
there's
and here's where now that I'm thinking back, where this stemmed from is the major discussions that took place regarding feature cards.
Correct.
And things of that nature, and people talking about competitive advantages or not with feature cards. And thankfully that ship has largely sailed, even though I know that argument will get drudged up on any given day, every single year till the end of time. But that's where this stemmed from, is the conversation about people feeling the advantage of feature cards. And I remember Chuck running the numbers and us having a very frank conversation about, like, it's not what so many people think it is. But it's funny that so many people claim that, well, I always play better when I play with other players, or I play better when I play with better players. That also gives you almost some indication, like the trajectory of your rating would be nothing but an incline.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you extrapolate that out and really think about it, I play better when I play with better players. Well, you're always playing with better players in some capacity because you're getting better, so you should be playing with better players. There's people that have sucked for 20 years.
Yeah. Us.
Yeah, I'm going to move on, but if
I understand.
Think back for a moment when you've said that as a viewer, as a listener, and you've thought about it or you've believed in that and uttered it, and then like really think about if that's what you do. Or are you just more excited to play with better players? Or is there something else you're attributing this to, or you're looking like something else to latch onto? But if you play better with better players, in theory, your trajectory of your rating and your golf success
not necessarily
should largely be going up.
Not necessarily.
Almost indefinitely.
No. I think you're looking at it wrong in that you think that people are going to progressively get better versus there is a ceiling and a floor. I play my best golf when I play with better players versus when I play with if I'm a pro player and I'm playing with Rec 2, I maybe don't play my best golf because of whatever. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're always playing better, but maybe your cap is 10-20. I play a lot of 10-20 golf when I play with good players, as opposed to my 980 golf that I play when I have to play with the Recs. So you don't necessarily always continue to get better, but playing better golf might be how you feel, because maybe you feel. I've said you're mentally weak if that's your case.
I agree.
If you have a problem playing with other players who don't play as well as you and you can't perform, then you
shouldn't plan on winning any tournaments. Because in theory you're going to be better than them all the time.
That too. You have a mental weakness you need to address on the course. If you think that playing with people who are not as good as you or significantly worse harms your game, because it shouldn't. In theory, you should walk up to every shot and execute, and it shouldn't matter whether that was 5 minutes between throws or 1 minute between throws. If it's 1 minute, you've probably hit a lot of trees. So, anyway, we'll drop that. It's an old conversation. We haven't rehashed that in like a year or two.
Well, Hazy Dude says it's funny that people think feature cards play better than someone on day 2 from the 10th card shoots a course record.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Coffee says I've just accepted that I'll never be a touring pro and should just prep my girls for Junior Worlds. That's also a very astute observation, and if numbers serve us right, yeah, it's probably your better bet. If you just look at the numbers, there can only be so many world champions, right? And it may not be in the cards for you. unless you just play with better players all the time.
I'm still holding out. I might be a touring pro.
Yeah, the Masters Tour. You're waiting to hear what Callie's plans are.
That's right. I'm looking,
and if they're big enough,
I'm looking at that MA60.
Oh wow, that's a ways off.
Well, listen, you didn't say when.
I just feel like if Callie's plans are big enough for next year's Masters Tour,
I got a lot of
and the
work to do,
purses
Terry.
are guaranteed enough, could we see you hit the road?
That's how deep they're paying.
Because Terry, I think Callie would have to be running something more lucrative than a winning lottery weekly to be deep enough for you to be there.
Again, I'm not gonna lie. We played this weekend, and after my second hole or after my second throw, I was like, "Ooh, my elbow's sore." Like,
You're ready for the tour.
I ain't fooling myself.
The sore elbow tour.
The sore elbow tour. I have gotta get something looked at.
How does Schwebby keep doing it? He keeps winning.
He's good.
I mean that's one way to go about it.
Just get good. As the kids say, get good.
Unrelated, of course. Cold Turkey registration's open. You'll hear me plug it at least for a couple more weeks or until it fills. But Cold Turkey is taking place the 2 days after Thanksgiving. All advanced divisions and all pros play on Saturday, November 25th. All other divisions play on Sunday. Overall, it's more than halfway full. There's 144 total spots for the 2 days. As I just mentioned, they're split up. I know it's already half filled. It was registration open last night.
Or is it half empty?
No, it's more than half filled. So it's less than half empty.
Depends how you look at it.
But yes, I want to welcome everyone. I know we have a lot of regional listeners as well. Hopefully you saw Cold Turkey is now available for everyone's fun and registration needs. And if you can't dedicate all day Saturday or all day Sunday to come play, I'm going to again bring back the Cold Turkey Flex Start where you play 2 rounds of 9 at the Red Fox course. So that you could come get in like an hour and a half or 2 hours or less. And then your day's complete there too. And that's also a pretty good bang for your buck. So Cold Turkey, all on Disc Golf Scene.
Yay.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, where we give away a prize every single week to our Patreon supporters. If you would like to be a Patreon supporter, it's as little as $1 a month. That's $12 a year. That is some phenomenal value.
It is.
You can support SmashBoxxTV. Without our supporters, it would be a lot more difficult for us to keep doing this podcast week after week after week. I just get sick of Terry. I need to be paid to be around Terry Miller. So thank you very much to our Patreon supporters. We have 132 people eligible for our giveaway this week, just like last week. Are we just going to give away a disc this week?
I've got some stuff. And our winner from last week, I sent him an email because we didn't have his address.
Nope.
I sent him an email, and he said, hey, I don't think I received a Patreon disc, even though he's eligible for it. And that goes hand in hand with the fact that we don't have his email or his mailing address. So I'm going to make good on that as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, clearly when we put out...
Yep, tell him to go into...
Exactly. Yep, we've put it out there and said, hey, especially if you're at that $3 level or above and you are entitled to a Patreon disc, please make sure you update your Patreon account just to give us your address. That way we can guarantee that you're going to get the Patreon disc when it becomes available and we release it and send it out to you for free. So he said he hadn't received one, and I'm like, oh, well, this is all adding up. You didn't receive one because we don't have your address.
And I'm looking right now, even though he is at the level...
receiving a free disc.
He is signed up for a different tier, which is probably why he somehow accidentally got filtered out. He signed up for just the early access and giveaways, and even though he has set the $3 level, I thought I was able to filter that so it's proper, but clearly not. So
Johnny effed up is what
Joseph
we're saying.
Thomas, in fact, Joseph Culp as well. Please go ahead and make sure your address is in there. Any other ones? We got Tumo doesn't have his in there. Eli Bowman, please put your address in if you're listening to this. Thank you. Those guys are the ones all at the $3 and above
make sure
level.
that you're getting what's getting good for you.
Make sure we have your address so we can send that to you. But anyway, now I just resorted it. I had it sorted by first name, but now I sorted it by
I like it.
by Patreon amount you're giving.
By how much
So,
you're our favorite.
Yep.
All right. I think the very first number you pull is our winner tonight.
Our very first number. All right, so we're going to do our very first number right here. Between 1 and 132, our very first number is 26, so it's going to be one of our lower Patreon givers.
We spread the love.
We do. We don't just give away to the big boys. We give away to the little boys and girls, too. So 26, that is Roger Shaw. Congratulations, Roger Shaw. You are a $1 Patreon. You've been a Patreon supporter for quite a while, Roger, since 2019.
Oh, pre-COVID.
Thank you, Roger. We'll reach out to you. Terry will get your address and whatnot.
Yeah, we don't have it in there. Nope.
No, because he's only $1.
Well, he could still have it in there.
He could put it in there. You're right, but he hasn't.
Yeah, that's a pro tip. Let me touch on this quickly. $3 and above, you're eligible and you're entitled to the free SmashBoxxTV Patreon exclusive disc every year at $3 and above. If you really want to make our jobs easier and have a better chance of your disc not only arriving but arriving earlier, update your Patreon and give us your address anyway. I swear we're not selling it to anyone. There's no one that wants us to sell it to them, but update us with your address. Put it in Patreon. It only gets used in order to send you free stuff. So that's the best reason to have your address in there. And I know it may not require it of you at the $1 level, but if you are at that level, and because otherwise what that does is then I have to send you an email. Hopefully it doesn't get spammed, marked, and then you have to send me an email back saying for sure what your address is, and it prolongs everything. If we just had your address, I just blindly send it right out to you.
I mark all your emails as spam, so don't worry, Terry.
Good call. That's how you should do it. Anyway. All right. Is there anything else we need to cover here tonight? Roger's the winner. I like it.
Yeah, congratulations, Roger.
Thank you so much.
Ray asks, how much money are you getting on the podcast ads, Johnny? I always download both shows each week and to give you a listen. It's not a lot. I'm not going to lie. I'd have to take a look at our most recent stuff. It's literally
less than the gas it cost me to drive over to Johnny's house.
It's probably true.
So
yeah, I would have to look for sure.
Oh, we need a gas fund.
Yeah,
to drive over here.
I wonder why he doesn't have August in there.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Give me that money.
In September, we made 1,400 SEK. SEK.
Is that Swedish kroners?
Swedish kroners, yeah.
Because that's where the company's based
out
out
of?
of?
The company's based
or
out
are you hiding it in some other bank account?
Not gonna lie, I might be hiding it in another bank account. No, just kidding. So if we go 1,400 Swedish kroner, that was $126.
Disc golf rich.
Disc golf rich.
Sweet. We're loaded.
Yeah.
I was going to say, don't spend it all in one spot.
We're open here. We tell you stuff. Tell you how much Swedish kroner we make.
It's too much. All right, guys. I think we are going to call it. We do appreciate you guys for joining us. We appreciate the guys from UDisc who are here in our regular show. As we said, we'll have Callie on at some point, talk a little bit Disc Golf Masters, maybe not just the 2023 season, but likely we'll get a little snapshot or insight into 2024. I'm sure we're going to see some shaking and moving in terms of sponsorships, along with some announcements regarding the European Tour and other golf internationally, and some big announcement next week. Guys, we thank you for joining us. All of our favorite Smashies out there, those that chime in on the board, and those that just come along for the listen and chuckle or yell at us one way or another with your...
They're both right.
The question is, do you get some kind of exemption if you're listening to Smashbox podcast in your earbuds while playing?
Well, yeah, you're allowed
that. We've got pull at the PDGA. We make that the only exemption.
In fact, when you get on the first tee, they just hand you a podcaster with just Smashbox in it. Each podcast.
This should calm you down for the next 4 hours.
Yeah, I was saying, and each podcast lasts about the length of a tournament round.
Perfect.
So we're set. Perfect. That's what we're here for.
Thank you to all our supporters in any capacity. Anytime you do listen or download any of the podcasts, please go ahead and give it a 5-star rating or whatever on your podcast app. That obviously helps as well with a little bit of exposure. And we need all the exposure we can get. For Johnny, I'm the Disc Golf Guy. That's Podcast 477's After Show. We'll see you next week on Halloween night. You step inside the Smash Box.
I was arrested for exposure.